Global alerts reported bizarre events: an abnormally huge abalone, a wild ancient tree with roots spreading for kilometers, giant vines falling from the sky, and subway tracks collapsing with casualties. However, people dismissed these as mere sensationalism, recalling past false alarms like the zombie bite scare. A group of students had gathered in front of the school, far more entertained by local gossip than by any news broadcast. Suddenly, their focus shifted entirely to a figure walking toward them. It was none other than the school's celebrated beauty, Chu Qingli. At once, speculation spread: was she finally going to end things with her boyfriend? To many, their relationship seemed nothing more than charity on her part. After all, Chu Qing had already secured admission into the prestigious Qincheng University, while her boyfriend hadn't even managed to enter a decent one. Their futures, in everyone's eyes, lay on completely different planes. Chu Qingli walked up to Fang Yi and called for his attention. Somewhat curious, he turned around. With a cold expression, she stated that she had thought it through: their relationship wasn't realistic. High school romances, she explained, always reached a stage where one realized they were never truly meant for each other. Building a life together required not just courage, but also compatibility. And for that reason, it was best to end things. Internally, she thought with disdain that no matter what he did to win her back, it would never work. Fang Yi remained silent. Observing this, the crowd assumed he was so stunned that he had either broken down or lost his senses. After all, she was the school's most admired girl. They expected him to fall to his knees, begging her for another chance. Instead, watching closely, they concluded he was nothing more than a toad foolishly desiring a swan, never truly her equal. But to their surprise, Fang Yi looked at her calmly and agreed to the breakup, leaving both Chu Qing and the onlookers momentarily stunned. Seeing there was nothing more to say, he simply turned his back on her and walked away. She grew flustered and called after him. Fang Yi turned back, his gaze sharp, and asked what she wanted. Her eyes, burning with anger, made it clear she didn't care about his thoughts or any tricks he might attempt. She would never return to him, and she wanted that to be absolutely clear. Fang Yi looked at her calmly and told her not to flatter herself, reminding her she was just the so-called school beauty. Her eyes widened in shock at his words, and a faint blush crept across her face. The students around them were stunned at Fang Yi's unexpected attitude. But he alone knew something they didn't: that all their measures of worth, like wealth and education, were destined to crumble. None of them could imagine that he had lived through the collapse of the world and had been reborn into this moment. To him, the girl before him was nothing more than a stranger from another life. Without hesitation, Fang Yi walked away from the school. Beauties and reputation held no value to him anymore, not when humanity itself stood on the brink of upheaval. It all started the previous night, when Fang Yi awoke to see mysterious cracks revealing glimpses of the future. Soon after, a system message appeared: full activation in 364 days, 11 hours, 59 minutes. Once that countdown ended, the entire world would undergo an irreversible transformation. Though puzzled, Fang Yi witnessed figures materializing before him as the system revealed that the very rules of society would be rewritten. A new era was coming, an era where cultivators ruled, and power became the ultimate law. Curious, Fang Yi reached out his hand. A strange light emerged, and a system window appeared, claiming to originate from the farthest reaches of the universe, built with supreme algorithms intertwined with cosmic secrets. Its purpose was to automatically generate cultivation techniques based on the spiritual materials the host touched. At that moment, however, no techniques were available. Fang Yi's eyes widened as his hand passed straight through the window, and in the next instant, a monstrous beast manifested, letting out an earth-shaking roar. Inside its gaping maw was a corpse, and the system declared that this was the destiny of an ordinary human, the fate awaiting billions across Blue Star. Terror gripped Fang Yi as he swallowed hard, clutching his chest, his heart filled with unease. His thoughts drifted to his previous life, an ordinary man carried helplessly by the current of disaster, fighting only to endure. He had seen his nation fall, his people suffer, and in the end, he too was torn apart by mutated beasts. He remembered dying in despair, overwhelmed with fury, his heart burning with vengeance. But now, with a new chance before him, his eyes blazed with determination. Perhaps it was this will that had led the system to choose him, to bring him back 1 year before Aura's recovery. Reaching out once more, Fang Yi touched the system fragments, resolving that he would seize every anomaly brought forth by the returning aura, this time, to turn them into his strength. The system began running a new evaluation. Fang Yi's eyes lit up as it confirmed a successful link. A fresh path had been unlocked. Now, anything in existence could serve as material. His mission was clear: to gather powerful techniques and abilities, forge himself into a strong cultivator, and ultimately save the world. Meanwhile, the city was being warned that humanity faced an unprecedented crisis. The answers could no longer be found in the past. The only way forward was for people to adapt with their own strength. Glancing at his phone, he noticed a flood of notifications. He realized the government hadn't confirmed nor denied the strange phenomena, merely advising people to prepare. Fang Yi recognized this as Sha Nation's subtle warning. Reports once dismissed as superstition would never have been allowed to spread this widely otherwise. Sadness clouded his expression as memories resurfaced. He remembered how this cautious, silent approach had always calmed citizens and built trust in the nation. Unlike neighboring countries, which fell into chaos and gunfire, Sha Nation's slow, measured method had proven far more effective. Then he recalled the system's words, everything could be used. That meant he needed to pursue anomalies wherever they surfaced. His eyes returned to his phone, where the top trending news caught his attention. The UV index at Xinjiang University had reached A. A heat warning had been issued, advising new students to take precautions and apply sunscreen. Most people scoffed. They couldn't believe a prestigious university would rely on such tactics, dismissing it as a publicity stunt or a paid trend. After all, such levels of heat would kill people outright. Fang Yi raised his head and looked at the sky above him. It was overcast with clouds. Out of caution, he activated his UV meter. It read 0. Confusion struck him. Xinjiang University was only 15 minutes away, yet the weather there appeared drastically different. Online images showed a blazing sun over the campus, and the announcement instructed new students to continue with registration but to avoid the north gate, where the UV index was highest. A faint smile curved Fang Yi's lips. He knew better. To the public, anomalies looked like scams or gimmicks, but only he understood the truth. His eyes gleamed with anticipation. His first real opportunity had arrived. Changing his clothes, Fang Yi set out for Xinjiang University. When he arrived, everyone was carrying umbrellas. The heat was unbearable. Without hesitation, Fang Yi walked straight to the north gate, the least crowded entrance. He was certain something was off there. Then, shimmering ashes drifted down from the sky. Students screamed and scattered, desperate to escape the deadly heat, but Fang Yi's attention locked onto the glowing particles. Calmly, he sat down and reached for one. The moment his finger touched it, a brilliant light erupted, and the system notified him. An intense yang attribute fluctuation detected, data template unlocked. The energy surged into his body, racking him with unbearable pain. His entire frame began to shine with blinding radiance, forcing others to shield their eyes. His clothes caught fire from the energy pouring into him, and he clenched his teeth in agony. Gripping his head, his mind on the brink of collapse, he didn't know if the system had finished compiling. All he knew was the sensation of death clawing at him. The system's compilation completed, and Fang Yi obtained a yang attribute technique, the golden sun breathing method. Soon after, the day arrived for new students to register at Xinjiang University. Among the crowd was Fang Yi's ex-girlfriend. A boy eagerly offered to carry her luggage, but she coldly declined. More followed, each trying to earn her attention, yet she brushed them off, insisting she needed no help. Casting a mocking glance at a nearby couple, she was suddenly startled by a dazzling flash of golden light. Gasps rippled through the students. A voice blared from the loudspeaker, warning everyone to stay away from the north gate. Her expression turned grave, and she made her way to see what was happening. At the north gate, an overwhelming burst of golden energy erupted, blanketing the area in radiance. From the haze emerged a shadowed figure radiating immense power. He inhaled deeply, and his eyes shone with a brilliant golden glow. A translucent screen materialized before him. New technique created. 50 points earned. Points. What for? He pushed the thought aside. It could wait. Night soon fell, the moon hanging strange and distorted in the sky. Alone, he began practicing the golden sun breathing method for the first time. By the following morning, the campus brimmed with unease. A scorching sun blazed above. Startled students rushed to the north gate, forming a crowd. The dean stormed in, furious that so many had ignored the warnings. Forcing his way to the center, he was accompanied by officials and a mysterious hooded figure. With a stern tone, the hooded individual ordered that the north gate be sealed off completely. Just then, the system informed Fang Yi, polluted area purified. He realized the government was already aware of such places, and wondered if others like him existed. The growing alert spread quickly. Students noticed uniformed personnel moving in and whispered nervously, "Were these soldiers?" His crimson eyes glowed faintly as he decided it was time to leave. With a swift leap, he vanished into the distance. The hooded figure walked the fractured ground, carefully examining the aftermath. Kneeling, she pressed a hand against the earth, sensing the lingering energy. Picking up a shard of scorched soil, she studied it closely. This power came from a person. Meanwhile, officials ushered students out of the area. Whispers spread in the crowd. Could one individual have caused all of this? His ex-girlfriend's eyes widened in disbelief. For a fleeting moment, she thought of Fang Yi when she saw a figure leaping away, but quickly dismissed the idea. With his poor grades, he could never have even entered Xinjiang University. Back at Fang Yi's modest home, the sun set and the room dimmed. Lying on his bed, he muttered about his body still burning, even after a cold shower. The heat made him restless, and another worry gnawed at him. Had someone noticed his display? Unlocking his phone, he saw a headline dominating the feeds. Cultivation Association announces official existence. He remembered how, in his past life, people had ridiculed it as an internet hoax. But the hooded figures from the university convinced him otherwise. Curious, he opened the article, which described the cultivation stages, from ghost acts all the way to transcendence. Comment sections mocked it as clickbait, but Fang Yi's instincts told him this was real. Sitting cross-legged on his bed, he resolved to test the golden sun breathing method again. Closing his eyes, he focused deeply. Sweat beaded his forehead as golden energy surged within him. His body lifted slightly into the air, glowing in radiant brilliance. The system whispered. First step, fortify the body to contain the essence of heaven and earth. With effort, he shaped the energy into a weapon, a shining, divine axe. His eyes blazed like suns, and a fierce smile spread across his face. For the first time, Fang Yi felt truly powerful. Curious, he examined the glowing screen, which revealed that a new path had been unlocked. The system explained that these points could be used to infuse compiled data into any object, essentially granting it attributes. Intrigued by the concept, Fang Yi glanced at the mug on his table. Extending his hand, a golden glow radiated from his palm. The system prompted. Use 1 point to imbue the Yang attribute into this object. Realization struck. This was no different from enchanting an item, giving it a unique power. His thoughts raced. If a mug can hold power, what about a weapon? The idea of forging his own specialized tool for combat thrilled him. Determined, he retrieved a small decorative sword from his shelf. If this works, I'll invest in a real weapon. I'll need it when the monsters come. But just as he prepared to test the ability, a strange noise pierced the silence of the night. The sound, halfway between a scratching rat and something far more sinister, came from outside the building. Unbeknownst to him, in the shadows beyond his apartment, a monstrous figure lurked. Its form resembled a grotesque rabbit, towering with demonic claws, red eyes glowing like embers, and jagged teeth glistening in the dark. Inside, Fang Yi shifted uneasily, his body still burning from the cultivation technique. His enhanced senses caught the noise again. At first, he dismissed it as a neighbor's pet, but the unease gnawed at him. He concentrated, sharpening his hearing. The sound wasn't from the pipes, nor the walls, it was right outside. Cautiously, he stepped toward the door. As he pulled it open, his blood ran cold. There, in the dim hallway, the mutated beast loomed before him, its crimson eyes locked onto his, radiating pure malice. A chilling memory from his past life surfaced, filling him with dread. Meanwhile, high above the city, a drone buzzed silently, tracking the disturbance. On a rooftop, a young woman leaned against the ledge, twirling a lollipop between her lips. Still haven't caught that damn rabbit that ate the rare fruit, she muttered, annoyed but relaxed. Her team's voice crackled through the comms, updating her on the target's location. Without hesitation, she leapt from the building. Her figure cut through the night air with breathtaking agility, weaving effortlessly between skyscrapers. Suddenly, her expression shifted. She could feel the surge of the mutated beast's power. She smirked. I'm close. Her eyes glowing with determination, the hunter finally locked onto the creature and prepared for battle. The mysterious figure landed heavily on a rooftop, moving with breathtaking agility. Sprinting down the side of a building, she received her order: pursue the target at all costs. Landing with flawless precision, she resumed the chase without pause. Leaping from one building to the next, she warned that the beast had consumed a rare fruit and could soon evolve. Inside a nearby office, a man working late glimpsed something dart past his window, moving far too quickly for him to comprehend. His boss's angry shout pulled him back, scolding him for standing idle. Within an apartment, Fang Yi now faced the strange creature as it let out a piercing scream. Golden eyes shining, he felt the undeniable change in his body. He was finally able to fight as an equal. The beast lunged at him with razor claws, but Fang Yi slipped aside with lightning speed. Every strike appeared slowed in his vision. His transformation had sharpened his perception. Gathering sun-infused energy in his hand, he wondered why such a mutated beast had appeared so early. Past life memories rushed back. He knew this monster hadn't fully evolved yet, and if it grew any stronger, it would endanger everyone in the building. Without hesitation, Fang Yi charged. His energy-filled hand seized the creature, and with raw strength, holding it in an iron grip, his golden eyes gleamed coldly. Spinning the monster into the air, he noticed its weakness, its tail. Grasping it with all his might, Fang Yi hurled the creature against the window, shattering it with explosive force. His fist glowed with radiant gold as he unleashed a devastating punch, releasing a beam of energy that struck the monster midair. The brilliant golden light engulfed the beast, but to his surprise, it clawed at the beam, trying to absorb its power. Fang Yi quickly realized, it was attempting to steal his yang energy. Clenching his teeth, he pushed back harder, convinced the sun's power was far too much for the creature. Indeed, the desperate beast only hastened its own destruction. Moments later, a golden explosion consumed it completely. Next door, a couple jolted awake from the noise. The man glanced at the window, wondering if it had been thunder, but seeing nothing unusual, he returned to bed. Fang Yi landed heavily on the floor, golden energy still flickering around him. Breathing hard, he reflected, the creature was like a starving ghost, drawn to devour his power. From its remains, a single eye dropped to the ground, leaking strange black smoke. With a hardened expression, Fang Yi stomped on it, crushing the last trace of the beast. He understood, it had been driven by its hunger for his opposing yang power. If not for his transformation, the monster would have devoured everyone inside. Now he knew, he had to master more techniques to face the dangers yet to come. At that moment, the mysterious huntress vaulted through the night sky, her movements graceful yet lethal. Her eyes widened in disbelief, her target was already gone. Kneeling, she examined the remains, murmuring that she would attempt to recover the night attribute. But when she touched the residue, a burst of golden energy scorched her hand, forcing her back instantly. The heat and blazing force reminded her of the energy at the university gate. This was no coincidence. Her expression hardened as she activated her communicator. With a steady, serious tone, she reported to her base. The target had been eliminated, not by her, but by a new forerunner wielding extraordinary power. On the other end, a voice asked if this was the same individual who had cleared the gate and slain the rabbit. A man confirmed that no records existed on this individual and insisted that the association must recruit him. The silver-haired girl agreed with the strategy, carefully sealing the small flame of energy into a container attached to her. Her superior instructed her to abandon her other missions and focus solely on locating the new forerunner. At that moment, the mysterious hunter casually unwrapped the lollipop she had been holding. Slipping the candy into her mouth, she replied that she fully understood the new directive. Still, before beginning the mission, she remarked that she needed to enjoy a cup of milk tea to relax. A voice over the communicator speculated on who this powerful stranger could be. The girl admitted the president was right, she had to meet this formidable figure herself. Elsewhere, Fang Yi's day began with the rising sun. Stretching, he prepared himself for training, knowing that morning cultivation amplified his strength. Employing his breathing technique, he absorbed the golden essence of dawn until his eyes glowed with radiant energy. Entering the ghost axe realm, he felt its power surge within him. A sudden burst of force surprised him. He realized he was once again growing stronger. Power coursed through his body as he clenched his fist, channeling energy into his hand. Summoning his key axe, he noticed the weapon felt far lighter than before. Gripping the handle tightly, he raised it overhead, releasing his enhanced might. In that moment, Fang Yi broke through to the two-star ghost axe realm, golden flames blazing in his eyes as proof of his newfound strength. His physique hardened, his aura thickened. This rapid advancement owed to the excess energy lingering from his last breakthrough. Determined not to let recklessness consume him, Fang Yi resolved to progress step by step, carefully from here on. Yet such a sudden leap in power did not go unnoticed. Within the association's office, a man sensed a disturbance in the flow of sunlight. Narrowing his eyes, he wondered if it was connected to the newcomer. Meanwhile, Fang Yi sought solitude beside a quiet river to further his plans. A system panel appeared before him, giving him the option to imbue his weapon with a special attribute. He recalled his earlier failed attempts. Ordinary items couldn't withstand his energy. But this time, the blade resonated with him, forging a powerful bond. A system prompt confirmed. Item encoding successful. Eager to test it, Fang Yi swung the weapon. To his astonishment, an immense golden beam shot skyward, tearing through the air. Landing heavily, his flaming sword hummed with power, nearly igniting the surroundings. The devastation was vast, thick smoke rising high into the sky. Realizing he had drawn attention, Fang Yi prepared to leave. At the same time, A girl raced toward the disturbance, muttering that she had only stepped away briefly, yet missed the action. Halting abruptly, her eyes widened, the river itself was boiling. Hovering above the scarred landscape, she wondered just what kind of damage the newcomer had wrought. Already, she could picture her superiors' reprimands, given how everything had spiraled since his arrival. Just then, a golden flash flickered in the distance, seizing her attention. Extending her senses, she froze in shock. Impossible. In such a short time, his cultivation had surged from 1 star to 2 stars, and beyond that, he had even forged a spirit weapon. The association possessed only 2 of those weapons, and the method to forge them remained a mystery. The girl grew suspicious, questioning how he could have gained such power on his own. Yet, she convinced herself she must be mistaken and turned her focus toward cleaning up the mess he had left behind. His blade now carried the yang attribute, but he hungered for more. Since the system could encode anything, he intended to fuse additional qualities into his weapon. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. A message appeared, from an unfamiliar sender. He had forgotten to keep his presence private. A stranger was inviting him to join a pioneers group. What shocked him most was the requirement. Official members needed to be at least at the Ghost Axe realm. The stranger mentioned a newly discovered pollution zone and invited him to participate in a group hunt. When Fang Yi asked for details, a file came through, information on the lava dragon of the Shadow River. The zone's environment was filled with molten heat, brimming with the same yang attribute he had just absorbed. Without hesitation, Fang Yi decided to accept the invitation. Meanwhile, in the Binmu district, a group was waiting for Old S contact to arrive. One of them remarked that the girl's map had made navigation easy. The blonde girl, standing at the center, thanked everyone for coming and reminded them of the importance of teamwork. She was an agent of the Cultivation Association, and she was disappointed. These pioneers weren't nearly as strong as she had hoped. What few realized was that the Cultivation Association was an official government organization. Entry was difficult, and she had needed her family's connections to secure a position. That pressure weighed heavily on her. Failure was something she despised. Just then, one of the explorers spotted a newcomer approaching and called out his name, Fang Yi. He arrived with a commanding presence, his sword radiating energy, and introduced himself. The blonde agent was startled by his strength, though she noted that his aura, while powerful, carried warmth rather than menace. With the full team assembled, the leader gave the signal, and they advanced toward the cavern entrance. Fang Yi volunteered to take the lead and asked the blonde agent to handle the lighting. As they moved deeper, someone warned him about the loose stones underfoot. Strangely, the cave wasn't nearly as hot as they had expected. As they walked, Fang Yi reflected on how quickly the group had accepted him. In these harsh times, the bonds of companionship felt genuine. But soon, the ground beneath him began to shift in color, a clear sign of looming danger. At last, they reached a vast chamber and stood in awe before a river of molten lava flowing fiercely through the cavern. Without hesitation, Fang Yi charged forward. The blonde agent shouted for him to stop, warning him not to be reckless. But before anyone could react, Fang Yi plunged his sword straight into the lava. The explorers cried out in panic, their voices echoing through the cavern as they called desperately for help. A fiery blast erupted, throwing the team backward, while Fang Yi's system immediately detected a global anomaly and began processing the data. The system analyzed the disturbance and unveiled a new power, the inner flame, a force of extreme heat with devastating explosive potential. Alongside it came the Scarlet Flame sword technique, which cloaked a drawn blade in blazing fire and crackling lightning. Both his eyes and the Tang blade shimmered with fiery brilliance, a perfect match for his weapon. Below, the other explorers, still recovering from the earlier shockwave, watched in awe. Fang Yi stood unscathed within a swirling vortex of fire, his weapon greedily absorbing the lava's power. Harnessing his script points, he permanently fused the Scarlet Flame attribute into his sword, which now pulsed with burning energy. When the flames finally receded, his companions assumed he had suffered a minor cultivation mishap but had quickly recovered. Relief spread through the group as they noticed the cave's spiritual energy stabilizing. One member cheered at the chance to absorb it freely, while another, on the cusp of beginning his cultivation journey, shouted Xiaoya's name in excitement. The blonde agent, Xiaoya, encouraged them to continue their training while she kept watch. The team expressed gratitude for her guidance. But their reprieve was short-lived. Xiaoya's sharp senses picked up movement near the entrance, others were approaching. Moments later, 3 brawny men strode inside, led by a figure with an eye patch and glowing red eyes. With smug arrogance, he declared the resource-rich cavern to be theirs. Xiaoya's expression darkened. She quickly realized all three intruders were at the one-star Ghost Axe realm, a power level far beyond her team's reach. Despite the looming threat, Xiaoya attempted diplomacy. She explained they had arrived first and even offered to share the site. Her words were met only with ridicule. The eye patch-wearing leader sneered at her low cultivation and ordered them to leave, or be destroyed. For a moment, Xiaoya faltered, reflecting on the cruel reality of the new era where only strength dictated survival. Yet, as a member of Sha Nation's association, she couldn't allow such blatant injustice. Just as the standoff was about to ignite, Fang Yi calmly stepped forward, placing himself between Xiaoya and the hostile leader. His blade erupted in flame as he leveled a cold glare at the man. "Do you have nothing better to do?" he asked icily, "than bully a young woman?" The scarred leader froze, momentarily speechless. Before he could respond, Fang Yi swung his sword in a single decisive motion. A fiery explosion tore through the chamber, blasting the three aggressors off their feet and hurling them across the cavern. The force of Fang Yi's strike startled even his own teammates, breaking them out of their meditation. Memories of past tragedies flooded his mind, disasters caused by those who clung to the brutal creed of survival of the fittest. Against such people, only overwhelming strength could make them yield. To drive the point home, Fang Yi thrust his blade into the ground before the rival leader, a golden aura radiating fiercely around him. With a cold voice, he commanded them to leave. The rival leader, trembling from this second display of might, cried out in terror, calling Fang Yi a monster before screaming for his men to retreat. Fang Yi watched as they scrambled away. His teammates rushed toward him, their faces alight with excitement at his show of power. He only smiled faintly, brushing it off, and suggested it was time for them to move on. As they departed, Xiaoya's mind lingered on the incredible strength Fang Yi had displayed. She realized he had been holding back and was convinced he was a top-tier pioneer. The scene shifted to the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association office. A woman on the phone with Sha repeated in shock that another high-attribute pioneer had appeared. Flustered, she realized she had revealed too much, especially with a towering figure standing silently behind her. After hurriedly confirming the report, she hung up awkwardly. Trying to lighten the atmosphere, she asked her gray-haired superior if they were simply fortunate to see two high-attribute pioneers emerge in succession. His expression turned grim as he corrected her. Luck had nothing to do with it. Every high-attribute cultivator, he explained, was destined to become a new center of power, and the weight of that responsibility pressed heavily upon him. Under a clear sky, Fang Yi returned to the city. Attempting to disguise himself as a cosplayer, he only attracted more stares. The authenticity of his sword and the overwhelming aura around him made him impossible to ignore. His walk was cut short when he noticed the news of the cave incident already dominating headlines. Clicking his tongue, he chastised himself for being careless. His eruption of internal flame had been far too conspicuous. Still, he dismissed the thought of betrayal from his teammates and instead focused on the urgent matter at hand. The immense yang energy within him was driving him toward a new breakthrough. He needed a secluded place, fast. Without hesitation, he headed toward the back mountain. 5 minutes later, on that very mountain, a silver-haired young woman named Su Qingying, an expert in garden restoration, sensed a powerful presence. She froze as a brilliant burst of light, like a miniature sun, erupted in the distance. The signs were unmistakable. Someone was breaking through to the 3-star Ghost Axe realm. The sheer scale of energy left her shaken. She had never imagined a breakthrough of that realm could unleash such devastating force. Duty and recognition stirred in her heart, compelling her to dash toward the disturbance. This time, she vowed, she would not let the mysterious figure escape. High above, Fang Yi immersed himself in his breakthrough. Vast streams of golden energy swirled around him, condensing into a radiant sphere like a blazing sun overhead. Suspended in meditation, the power behind him coalesced into a complex, star-shaped divine seal. Sparks of golden light danced across his skin as his glowing eyes strained to rein in the wild force. At last, the energy converged, forging a massive divine axe of pure golden and azure light, crackling with terrifying might. Su Qingying, upon arriving, halted abruptly, her breath catching in disbelief. She stood frozen, witnessing the impossible sight of the mysterious man preparing to swing the colossal axe he had just formed. His mastery was unreal, each motion perfectly balanced, his control over spiritual energy flawless. The display stirred bitter memories. She recalled her own failed attempt to ascend to the Ghost Axe 2-star realm. The pressure from her divine axe had crushed her, forcing blood from her lips and confining her to bed for a week. Despite her natural strength, she had been defeated utterly. But this man, this monster, was handling a breakthrough of far greater magnitude with terrifying ease. As she drew nearer, her awe only deepened. The sheer density of spiritual energy, the meticulous precision of every movement, the way the power seemed refined and purified. To her, this figure wasn't merely a prodigy. He was like a god descending from the heavens. What struck her most was his calm. Where most pioneers would recklessly rush the moment they sensed a breakthrough, Fang Yi's composure was unshakable. He advanced steadily, like a master who already knew the outcome. Her thoughts froze when the colossal fiery divine axe began to stir. She could only watch in awe as it swung deliberately toward the east. At the height of his power, Fang Yi's eyes blazed with golden light, cracks of raw energy streaking across his face. Suspended within a storm of radiant power, he controlled the immense energy he had gathered to push his evolution forward. A system window appeared, confirming his breakthrough. He had advanced to the Ghost Axe realm, 2-star. The divine axe then crashed into the earth, releasing its power in a massive shockwave that tore through the mountain. Su Qingying was struck by the force and had to brace herself against the golden tempest. The residual energy carved a wide path through the forest before finally dissipating. When she looked up again, the mysterious man was gone. Panting with frustration, Su Qingying could hardly believe she had missed him yet again, despite arriving within 30 seconds. A troubling realization hit her. He must have known she was pursuing him. If he remained this elusive, her mission to recruit him might prove impossible. Just as she was about to give up, she stopped. A sudden thought came to her. Her gaze shifted from the path of destruction to an ancient tree, its bark glowing faintly with residual golden light. With new certainty, she called out into the seemingly empty woods, addressing him as senior and asking if he was still present. From the forest shadows, Fang Yi emerged. His hooded figure exuded calm confidence, and his glowing red eyes locked on Su Qingying. He immediately recognized her as the one who had been investigating him over the past few days. Knowing she had been discovered, Su Qingying held her ground and formally introduced herself. She explained that she was captain of the Firefly Squad, part of the Spiritual Practitioners Association of Sha Nation, and among the nation's first pioneers. On behalf of the association, she extended a sincere invitation for him to join. She admitted she had been following him for 2 days and hoped her methods hadn't left him with a poor impression. Fang Yi listened in silence, his hood concealing any sign of expression. Nervously, Su Qingying continued, explaining that while the public was still unaware, the association had already completed all its official procedures. Inside, however, her heart pounded. She chose her words with care, afraid of angering the powerful man before her. Her careful speech, however, was cut short by Fang Yi's simple, piercing question, "Why should I join?" The bluntness caught her completely off guard. She faltered, panic rising, but quickly realized that empty pleasantries would never sway someone like him. The truth was her only weapon. Composing herself, she explained the association's purpose. Sha Nation sought to gather and unite all early pioneers, to guide them along a structured path and offer them greater protection. Growth at this stage was chaotic, she admitted, and while an association might feel like a cage to someone as free as him, she urged him to consider the larger picture. After Chu Qing's impassioned speech, Fang Yi leaned lazily against a tree, his face carrying an air of weariness and disinterest. He stated bluntly that he had no intention of joining. For now, he admitted, he couldn't bring himself to trust either her or the association she represented. Her breath caught at his refusal, eyes widening in shock. Desperation took hold of Su Qingying as she quickly pulled an identification card from her jacket. Holding it up, she reintroduced herself as Su Qingying, once a renowned athlete before the return of spiritual energy. She pleaded for him to believe her, hoping that her public identity might earn his trust. Fang Yi paused, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Slowly, he admitted that he vaguely remembered her. His mind conjured the image of a framed photograph, her holding a medal, celebrating her runner-up finish in the CIA Nations long-distance championship. Her natural athleticism, he realized, was what had allowed her to become such a capable pioneer so quickly. But his expression soon hardened. A shadowed memory from his past life surfaced, a city reduced to ruins. He knew that, in his original timeline, the Sea Nations Association had ultimately failed, dooming humanity. Now, reborn with the system, he was determined to be part of the solution. Still, joining the association at this early stage wasn't the right choice. He promised he would consider her offer. Before she could respond, his figure blurred. He had leapt into the air and vanished, only to reappear behind her in an instant. Startling her, he laid down a firm condition. She was to keep his whereabouts secret. Studying her respectful demeanor, Fang Yi realized the association tread carefully around independent pioneers. To him, this was a weakness he could exploit. Su Qingying, regaining her composure, suggested a compromise. She explained that the association had detected the energy from his recent breakthrough, and she was obligated to file a report. Instead, she offered to craft a document blending truth with lies, protecting his identity while satisfying her superiors. After a moment's thought, Fang Yi agreed. But before she could say another word, he was gone, vanishing like mist. Chasing him down the mountain was pointless. Annoyed and exhausted, Su Qingying muttered as she walked a lonely forest path, cursing how many times she had failed to catch him and how he deliberately avoided her. She sighed, complaining about the endless task of erasing the powerful energy traces he left behind after every incident. Her grumbling was cut short by a voice in her earpiece, reminding her to forget the elusive pioneer and focus on her mission. The tone grew grim. Strange creatures had reappeared. Su Qingying froze, her eyes wide with dread. "They're back," she whispered. A chilling memory surged. Her surrounded by feral, wolf-like monsters, their eyes glowing red, their mouths dripping with blood. She knew she would never forget those horrors. The narration explained. These were no ordinary beasts. They were abominations born from pollution zones created by the return of spiritual energy. Feeding off the corrupted energy, they became bloodthirsty monsters that devoured humans. Some could even disguise themselves as natural disasters, tearing land apart while creating new pollution zones. If unchecked, their hunger would consume the human world entirely. A storm suddenly slammed into the city. The night sky flashed not with streetlights but with constant bursts of lightning. Sheets of rain poured down, while red alerts lit up on every citizen's phone, warnings of severe thunderstorms and instructions to stay inside. Another message declared Yuhuang Mountain off limits due to flood risks. From their windows, people muttered that they hadn't seen a storm like this in years. Some even joked that a powerful cultivator must be undergoing a lightning tribulation. Hidden in a narrow alley, Fang Yi stood silently, his crimson eye glowing faintly as he studied the storm. He could sense the enormous lightning energy crackling through the air. It was no ordinary storm, but another anomaly. His gaze swept beyond the city, locking onto a distant mountain peak hammered repeatedly by lightning bolts. He had found the storm's heart. Without hesitation, Fang Yi dashed into the downpour, vaulting across rooftops as he rushed toward Yuhuang Mountain. Upon reaching the mountain's base, his system confirmed it, a pollution zone detected. Lifting his eyes toward the summit, Fang Yi no longer saw beauty. Instead, a desolate sight awaited, skeletal remains scattered across the ground, twisted trees clawing against the storm. Another system alert heightened the danger, warning that the pollution level was still unknown. Even so, Fang Yi pressed forward without hesitation, striding into the storm-darkened forest with unwavering resolve. Nearing the heart of the tempest, a colossal streak of blue lightning split the skies and crashed into the mountain's summit, illuminating the land in blinding light. He had found his target. Inside the command center of the Spiritual Practitioners Association, officials convened in tense silence. One officer reported that the situation on the mountain was escalating rapidly, forcing them to classify it as a contamination zone. The grim-faced association leader immediately issued orders. Su Qingying was to be pulled from her current mission and redirected here. Appearing before them, she delivered her report. Climbing the mountain was impossible. The thunder energy was unstable and on the verge of a catastrophic eruption. With this, the area was officially marked as an A-level contamination zone. Her next words unsettled the room further. Based on the data, the energy concentration was climbing so quickly that Mount Yuang would soon escalate to an S-level threat, triggering their highest emergency protocols. But then came the real blow. She admitted that none of their explorers, not even herself, could endure conditions like these. Shock rippled through the chamber. Projections made it clear that attempting this mission would be certain death, even for their most elite. In response, a uniformed commander ordered Mount Yuang sealed off entirely, with patrols stationed around the clock to prevent anyone from approaching. The association leader agreed. Until the energy concentration subsided, no one was to go near the mountain. Yet, while they deemed the peak untouchable, Fang Yi was already deep inside the storm. Massive bolts of blue lightning crashed down in torrents, but his golden aura, drawn from his breathing technique, shielded him. Still, he knew defense alone would achieve nothing. To claim the purest thunder energy, he had to climb to the eye of the storm, the mountain's very peak. His decision was fueled by bitter memories of his previous life. The horrors they faced now were only the beginning. Stronger, deadlier creatures would emerge, and his current fire-based strength was insufficient. He couldn't rely on weapons alone, his body itself had to be reforged. As the storm raged, Fang Yi recognized the rare chance before him, to temper his body with thunder. If he failed to seize this moment, he knew death would surely claim him when the greater calamities arrived. Eyes gleaming with golden light, he drew his flaming sword. With a roar that defied the heavens, he thrust the blade into a massive arc of blue lightning. The raw, violent energy poured into him, racking his body with unbearable pain. His limbs trembled, his clothes scorched, yet his expression remained unyielding. He realized this thunder was no ordinary energy, it was judgment itself, punishing him, rejecting his intrusion. The storm roared as though enraged by his defiance, demanding he surrender. Fang Yi's gaze locked onto the chaos above. How could such primal force be tamed? Then he recalled the system's rule: to obtain power, one must touch its source. A golden aura flared from his body as he activated his golden sun-breathing technique. With renewed determination, he charged through the lightning, his flaming sword carving a path in defiance of the raging storm. The clash of his radiant energy against the raw thunder produced a cataclysmic explosion. Blood ran down his lips from the strain, but his eyes burned fiercer than ever. This was a gamble with life and death on the line: survive or perish. Fang Yi stood at the storm's eye, where the thunder's fury was at its most terrifying. A violent surge of thunder energy overwhelmed the air, making it difficult even to breathe. Fang Yi felt the storm's full focus on him, and realized it no longer intended merely to repel him. Its goal was to kill. To prove it, the storm gathered all its power and unleashed a colossal beam of white-hot lightning directly at him, an attack meant to utterly annihilate him. As Fang Yi faced this final strike, his system activated, detecting the immense thunder attribute and beginning to process it far below. In the city, people watched from tall buildings in awe. One man snapping photos had never seen lightning of such magnitude. Another wondered if a god was undergoing some celestial trial, even swearing he saw a figure in the sky. A system message confirmed his triumph, announcing that he had obtained refined divine thunder power, granting him the ability to summon heavenly lightning and elevate his body to godlike status. He was rewarded with 5 writing points. Floating in midair, surrounded by blue lightning and a golden aura, Fang Yi grasped the extent of his new power. Thunder, unlike his sun attribute which primarily served defensive purposes, could both refine his body and transform it into a force of raw energy. He decided that thunder would become both his spear and shield. He also realized its essence went beyond mere destruction, it carried purification and rebirth. His bones and muscles strengthened instantly, without any pain. The system then prompted him with an upgrade option: Punish Evil, which would grant double critical damage, asking if he wished to spend his writing points. Landing softly, Fang Yi considered his next step. His first instinct was to channel the thunder power into his Tang sword. Yet he hesitated, knowing that overloading the blade with multiple attributes could compromise its sun attribute or even destroy the weapon. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Looking at his hand, he decided to do something different. He would implant the thunder attribute directly into his right hand. The system immediately asked for confirmation. A confident smirk spread across his face, and he gave the command. In an instant, the wild blue lightning around him surged into his hand, and he claimed the storm's power as his own. The next day, on the storm-ravaged peak of Mount Yuang, the immediate danger had dissipated. Suing Ying reported that the contamination zone's energy had mysteriously dropped from deadly levels to mild intensity within 3 hours. Some residual electricity lingered in the air, but Major Han quickly deduced what had occurred. A seeker had been present, a person who actively engages with dangerous anomalies. Suing Ying was startled. Could another seeker have survived? She knelt, searching for traces, but detected nothing, likely washed away by the heavy rain. She concluded that the seeker had left the mountain safely around 8 p.m. the previous night. Major Han agreed. The anomaly had begun around 6 p.m., with the army sealing the mountain at 7 p.m., so the seeker must have ascended before the closure. Instruments had predicted the danger would reach grade S, yet after 8 p.m., the energy abruptly dropped. Standing where the lightning had struck hardest, Major Han theorized that the seeker not only survived but probably possessed a thunder-related power, turning what should have been a disaster into an advantage. He concluded that this individual was directly responsible for the sudden energy drop. However, his concern ran deeper. People like this were unpredictable and potentially the greatest threat. Suing Ying agreed. If such a powerful individual turned hostile, the destruction they could unleash would be catastrophic. Miles away, unaware of the military operation now targeting him, Fang Yi sat on his couch, letting out a loud sneeze. Back on the mountain, Major Han made a decisive order: find this person at any cost. In official records, the mysterious target was given the temporary codename, the Tyrant. The investigation at Yuhuang Mountain began immediately. The army hoped the Spiritual Practitioners Association could recruit the mysterious figure known as Tyrant as soon as possible. Meanwhile, they planned to keep all details of the event secret and conduct their own inquiries. On the rain-soaked peak, the association leader informed Major Han that a high-level pioneer was already attempting to make contact. He then turned to Su Qingying and instructed her to present her report to the major. Startled by the sudden order, Su Qingying gasped in panic. Forced to think quickly, she delivered a cautious, half. She tied the current incident to the pioneer who had recently cleared the pollution zone at a local university. Inside, she was terrified, worried that a single misstep might expose her deal with Fang Yi. She explained that she had been trying to locate him but had found him elusive. She referenced the mutated rabbit's corpse that he had killed and correctly deduced its Yang Flame attribute from the evidence. Concluding her report, she promised to get closer to him and learn how he had managed to clear the university's gate. Silently, she prayed for luck. Blending truth and lies was her only chance to make her story believable. Major Han listened carefully, contemplating the implications of a pioneer possessing a Yang Flame attribute. He seemed satisfied with her account, praising her as a talented young pioneer and thanking her for her effort. Su Qingying snapped a crisp salute and responded that it was her duty. Once the meeting concluded, Major Han mentioned they would release fake news about natural disasters to obscure the real event from the public. He also expressed his opposition to publishing information about spiritual energy online, fearing that it could fall into the wrong hands. Meanwhile, at home, Fang Yi employed his golden sun breathing technique to effortlessly dry his white hoodie, which radiated a warm glow. Holding it up, he observed that it was perfectly clean and dry. After putting it on, he assessed the changes in his body. Even with the addition of the powerful thunder attribute, he could still perceive a distinct difference in his strength. His right hand now crackled with blue lightning, fully transformed into the strongest part of his body and significantly enhanced. Flexing his fingers, he created small orbs of lightning, sensing that he was nearing another breakthrough. What amazed him most was how the once chaotic thunder attribute had become as calm as a kitten, allowing him complete control. He compared this to the excruciating pain he had felt when unlocking the Yang attribute, wondering if the energies had weakened during integration. Recalling the system's note that this new power dealt double damage to strange and evil creatures, he grew eager to test it. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alert on his phone, lying on a nearby table. Picking it up, he wondered what could be happening now. Having set up special news notifications after the previous incident, he knew that in these turbulent times, the government issued warnings to protect citizens. For a pioneer like him, however, these alerts signified more than just danger, they represented opportunity. In every crisis, there was a chance to grow stronger, even if it meant risking one's life. Fang Yi pondered his next move and glanced at a major news alert on his phone. A massive explosion had occurred at a chemical plant, releasing widespread pollution throughout the city. Official reports claimed no casualties and urged people to stay calm. But Fang Yi felt unease. An event of this magnitude rarely went unnoticed. He scrolled through online forums, reading eyewitness accounts far more chilling than the official story. The words, cold, and evil aura, immediately triggered a terrifying memory from his past life. A bloody hand, a monstrous, multi-eyed red demon, and the terror of hiding as it destroyed everything around him. The creature, a grotesque rat-like monster, was familiar to him, and he knew its threat well. Back in the present, Fang Yi's expression hardened. These creatures were plants or animals that had undergone strange transformations, becoming self-aware and gaining deadly hunting abilities. They thrived in darkness and were far more dangerous than the mutated rabbit he had once fought. Clenching his fist, crackling with his new blue lightning, he resolved to act that night, preventing the creatures from surviving and growing stronger. Blue energy swirled around him as he prepared to test his newly acquired 200% critical hit ability in a real fight. The city streets were empty, soaked by rain under a stormy sky. Traffic lights flickered as cloaked figures blurred across the wet pavement, the destroyer squad, moving with deadly speed. One member reported to headquarters that they were tracking anomaly file number 7, codenamed Candle Knight, but had lost its trail. The creature's known ability to blend into shadows made it extremely elusive. Lightning flashed across the sky as the squad landed on a rooftop to survey the city. Their leader, a scarred man with light-colored hair, knew the stormy conditions would favor the creature's hunt. At headquarters, an operator received the updated information, confirming that Candle Knight posed a serious threat. An extermination request was issued with a 12-hour window to neutralize the anomaly, emphasizing the squad's safety above all as they neared the target's last known location, a warning arrived. The area was being monitored by agents from the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association. A photo of Su Qingying appeared on the screen. Her team could provide support if needed. The squad leader immediately requested her assistance, citing her renowned tracking skills. Meanwhile, Su Qingying was taken aback by her sudden fame. She and her team, the Ying squad, arrived atop a higher rooftop, casually surveying the destroyer squad below. She teased, asking if they had called her for overtime. The squad leader scowled and sternly explained the threat. Candle Knight ate humans, and this was no trivial mission. One of her team retorted sharply, and Su Qingying began to leave, suggesting the squad probably didn't need help. Panic struck the squad leader, who begged for her cooperation, stressing that failure would mean death for the city's residents. She agreed, and both teams prepared for the hunt. Su Qingying concentrated, conjuring a glowing blue orb that revealed the creature's location. Hidden in the ruined, wet remnants of the chemical plant, the monstrous multi-eyed rat-like Candle Knight fed on its prey, thriving in darkness and dampness. The joint operation commenced. The creature, sensing their presence, leapt away just as an attack struck the ground. The squad closed in, surrounding it from all. One member lunged, striking it into a pile of rubble. But Candle Knight wasn't weakened. Its back erupted with red sores and black spikes. It shrieked furiously, generating a vortex of dark energy. Su Qingying shouted a warning about the approaching soundwave, but it was too late. An explosive sonic blast hurled squad members across the rooftop. The squad leader crashed to the street below, bruised but alive. Realizing the creature's prolonged presence in the city would spell disaster, he struggled to regain control. Candle Knight continued to evolve, growing bat-like wings and glowing green energy in its throat before releasing a corrosive dark substance that filled the air. It aimed to melt the street and burrow underground to escape. Su Qingying's team observed the danger. Their powers were insufficient to directly combat the monster. She calmly instructed them to focus on gathering intelligence and maintaining the squad's formation. Meanwhile, a destroyer squad member prepared a dagger for a strike. Suddenly, a pair of menacing red eyes glowed from the shadows, signaling the hunt had just become deadlier. The winged Candle Knight lunged forward, narrowly evading a strike from a leaping member of the squad. Furious, the destroyer squad leader shouted at his team not to let the monster slip away. The winged creature streaked through the city streets, pursued relentlessly by the cloaked Ying squad members. From a high rooftop, Su Qingying and two of her team observed the chase. Suddenly, she sensed a sharp surge of spiritual energy emanating from the direction of the creature. Recognizing that something significant was about to unfold, she instructed her team to stay outside while she pursued the target alone. The pursuit led them to a massive, dark, abandoned factory. Inside, Su Qingying prepared to scan the area for spiritual energy. The destroyer squad leader noticed the advanced watch on her wrist. She confirmed it was a new device issued by the association, explaining that it measured the energy threshold a squad could safely handle, set at 50. Candle Knight's level had read only 48. Suddenly, her wrist device began flashing wildly as the reading shot past 80. Alarmed, Su Qingying shouted that the energy levels were spiraling out of control. At that moment, a colossal shadowy form with glowing green eyes appeared in the rafters above. They had been led straight into a trap. Horror washed over Su Qingying as she realized there was more than one creature in the factory. Behind them, the monstrous shadow of a new, unseen creature emerged. The destroyer squad leader panicked, shouting that they needed to retreat immediately. Taking command of the situation, Su Qingying proposed a tactical withdrawal toward the main entrance to draw the hidden enemy out. She unleashed a blast of energy to clear a path, calling for her team to follow. Before they could escape, a sharp pain tore through her, and she collapsed, her senses overwhelmed by an invisible poisonous gas. Suddenly, Su Qingying found herself alone in the vast, green-tinged darkness of the factory. She called out for her team, but there was no response. They were nearby, she knew, but the poison had rendered them unable to sense her presence. Candle Knight had led them into the lair of a far more powerful creature, a giant serpent she had only faintly perceived before. As if summoned by her thoughts, the massive armored head of the shadowy serpent, eyes glowing green, loomed over her. Unlike Candle Knight's simple dark power, this creature exuded black mist, a potent poison they had been breathing in since entering the factory. The gas moved silently, paralyzing its victims while siphoning their spiritual energy. Struggling against it would only drain their power faster, leaving death inevitable. She could feel her own energy nearly depleted. Without it, she knew she would soon join the ranks of the fallen. Collapsing to the factory floor, exhausted, Su Qingying despaired at the terrifying intelligence of a creature that seemed to toy with them. She closed her eyes, wondering if this was the end. Then, a single ray of light pierced the green gloom above, igniting a flicker of hope in her eyes. Suddenly, the factory ceiling exploded inward, filling the room with blinding radiance. Her eyes widened as a figure descended through the chaos. It was Fang Yi. He landed with grace amidst the rubble, his hooded form silhouetted against the glowing breach in the ceiling. Standing before the colossal serpent, he immediately recognized it as a dark attribute creature. Without warning, the serpent lunged, its massive fangs aimed directly at him. Simultaneously, the Candle Knight monster burst from the shadows, attacking from behind. Fang Yi dodged the serpent's strike, coming face to face with the snarling, rat-like beast. As both creatures closed in, he finally grasped the full extent of the trap he had stumbled into. In a daring move, Fang Yi allowed the Candle Knight to bite his shoulder. Blood splattered, but he noted the creature's clever tactics, one to lure, the other to finish off the prey. Smirking, he taunted the monster gripping him, asking if it took pleasure in biting humans. Then, he unleashed his newfound power. Brilliant blue lightning surged across his body, shocking the creature, while from his free hand he fired a massive golden solar beam that struck the lunging serpent squarely. Electrified and freed from the rat-like monster, Fang Yi focused fully on the serpent. He unleashed a torrent of golden flames, challenging it to endure his fire. The serpent roared, lunging with its enormous jaws wide open. With astonishing agility, Fang Yi dodged, flipping through the air and swinging his glowing golden sword. Landing gracefully, he addressed the creature with a calm challenge. "Look at this blade." The serpent hesitated, wary of the radiant weapon. Seizing the opportunity, Fang Yi counterattacked, leaping once more to deliver a devastating slash to the serpent's face. His sword crackled with blue thunder energy, and the impact was immense. Yet, the result defied expectation. Instead of crushing the skull, the creature's head split down the middle. Fang Yi landed gracefully on his feet, his eyes widening at the strange turn of events. The creature's split head pulled apart completely, shedding its outer layer to reveal its true, healed form. And Fang Yi immediately realized that the battle was far from over. The serpent writhed in shock and pain as the lingering thunder energy from Fang. It roared furiously, but the electrical power only grew stronger, overwhelming the serpent's dark energy. Watching it struggle, Fang Yi allowed himself a small, confident smirk. He had the upper hand. He had already sensed that the serpent's dark aura surpassed even that of Candle Knight. He reflected on his strategy. During the initial attack, he had deliberately restrained the full power of his fire. Instead, his sword had acted as a conduit, channeling the thunder energy from his hand directly into the serpent's body. Comparing the two creatures, he concluded that this serpent was far more dangerous and evolved than Candle Knight. Suddenly, sharp pain flared in his shoulder where the rat-like creature had bitten him. Hissing, he glanced down to see strange purple snake scales sprouting from the wound. Immediately, he understood. This was a clever mutated species. Its venom, delivered via a partner's bite, caused paralysis, allowing it to silently kill. Despite the pain, Fang Yi felt his golden sun breathing technique activating to combat the venom. Determined, he realized he had the perfect counter. His yang flame could dissolve the poison, the golden sun technique would heal and protect him, and his thunder energy would neutralize any remaining threat. As his powers surged through him, he recognized the advantage of combining them. The mixture of yang flame and thunder now acted as an early warning system against poison. He knew he was fortunate. For anyone else, the serpent's insidious venom would have been fatal. He reflected on the serpent's tactics. To have grown so massive, it relied on surprise attacks. Its den, filled with the skulls of victims, showed how even top pioneers had fallen to the trap, especially when Candle Knight acted as bait. Yet now, none of that mattered. Watching the creature's massive skeleton burn to ash in his holy fire, Fang Yi knew its reign of terror was finally over. Standing before the flames, he felt satisfaction and confidence. His inner fire was strong, and the triple critical hit from his thunder power had cemented his victory. He judged his combat skills to be among the best, even compared to other high-level pioneers. He stood silently, observing the fire consume the last remains of the monster. Just as he prepared to leave, he paused, sensing something. His eyes narrowed. He wasn't alone. A figure stumbled from the smoke, coughing from the ash. It was Su Qingdiang. She was alive, covered in soot and visibly exhausted. As the smoke cleared, Fang Yi noticed the unconscious members of the other squad, with Su Qingdiang among them. Recognizing her as an agent from the association, he calmly remarked that there was no need for pretenses. He added that her act of playing dead needed work, leaving her surprised. Embarrassed, Su Qingdian covered her face, realizing she had been found out. Trying to recover, she attempted to make an excuse, claiming she had just woken from the smoke. Fang Yi, however, wasn't deceived. He complimented Su Qingdian, pointing out that while her teammates had exhausted their energy, she had maintained a small reserve to protect herself. If she had truly been unconscious, he explained, she wouldn't have been able to sense anything. Flustered, Su Qingdian could only murmur a shy thank you. Noticing her embarrassment, Fang Yi's tone softened. He told her she didn't need to hide her eyes and that he had only asked her to be honest and keep his identity. Seeing that she and her team were safe, he mentioned that it was getting late and that he would be leaving. Su Qingdian tried to call out to him, but it was too late. He said explaining would spoil the surprise and, in a single, effortless motion, leapt through the hole he had made in the factory ceiling, disappearing into the night. As he traversed the rooftops, Fang Yi reflected on the battle. He was relieved that Su Qingdian hadn't attempted to absorb the dark energy from the monsters, recalling its repulsive coldness. He wondered why he couldn't absorb it himself. Perhaps the dark energy was already depleted, or his body had instinctively rejected it. He decided to consider it later at home. Left alone in the vast, abandoned factory, Su Qingdian looked up at the moonlit hole where Fang Yi had vanished. She sighed, disappointed that she hadn't gotten a proper look at his face, realizing he still didn't fully trust her or the association. She approached the unconscious captain of the destroyer squad and gave him a few sharp slaps, urging him to wake. The man groaned and slowly opened his eyes, bruised and disoriented. Panic flared immediately, and he shot upright, shouting that they had been ambushed. Su Qingdian, however, remained calm. Soon, the leader and his squad noticed the reason for her composure, the massive, smoking skeleton of the giant serpent before them. Staring in disbelief, they demanded to know what had happened and where such powerful yang energy had come from. Su Qingdian explained carefully that a powerful pioneer had intervened to save them, likely the same high-level individual from her original mission, one with a strong yang attribute. She let her voice trail off, suggesting that his appearance was a fortunate coincidence. The squad members were in awe. One whispered that it was impossible for a single person to defeat both monsters. Su Qingdian added that she hadn't managed to recruit him yet, and that he had even tracked her back, which only made him more enigmatic. Returning to their grim duties, the destroyer squad leader asked about Candle Knight's body. Using a green energy technique to cleanse the scene, he noted that the remains needed to be collected for the association. As the squads began clearing the battlefield, the destroyer squad's leader used a green energy orb to gather the strange dark remains left behind. Stepping forward, he accidentally crushed a piece of debris on the ground, which erupted in a burst of brilliant blue electrical energy. He leapt back, wincing from the shock, yelling in pain, while Su Qingdian looked on, astonished. This unexpected development made the situation even more mysterious. They soon realized the remains belonged to Candle Knight, and they were still crackling with residual electricity. The two leaders knelt to examine the electrically charged corpse. Su Qingdian was stunned by the sheer strength of the thunder energy, recognizing it as a high-tier ability. This sparked a new theory in the destroyer squad's leader. Perhaps there had been two high-level pioneers, one to kill the serpent, and another to finish Candle Knight before departing together. But Su Qingdian knew that couldn't be correct. She struggled to articulate the unbelievable truth. Recalling the image of the lone pioneer wielding both crackling blue lightning and roaring golden fire, she realized no one would believe it. Possessing one top-tier power made someone a genius, having two was almost unheard of, yet the evidence lay before them. The scorched skeleton of the giant serpent bore the unmistakable mark of a Yang Flame Walker, while the electrified remains of Candle Knight clearly reflected a Thunder Tyrant's power. The combined squads could only stare in disbelief, trying to comprehend the nature of this mysterious pioneer. As reinforcements from the association arrived, Su Qingdian was grateful she had left some team members outside. She grimly realized that the rescue team now on site had originally been dispatched to retrieve their bodies. Her two subordinates, who had been incapacitated by the serpent's poison, finally awoke and rushed to her side, tears of relief streaming down their faces at the sight of their captain alive. With the immediate threat eliminated, the association's team shifted their focus from rescue to forensic investigation. Using advanced scanning technology, they meticulously analyzed the remaining spiritual energy and battle traces to reconstruct the events for their report to headquarters. Soon, one specialist approached Su Qingdian and the destroyer squad leader with his conclusions. After comparing all the data, from fighting habits to the way both monsters had been defeated, he reported a 99% probability that a single individual had killed both. The two squad leaders exchanged stunned, concerned glances. The other squad members murmured among themselves, struggling to process the revelation. They had been saved by a pioneer wielding two distinct high-tier powers, a feat they had never thought possible. Either of the monsters could have easily slaughtered them all, yet this individual had eliminated both with what appeared to be single, decisive strikes. Recognizing the immense significance of her discovery, Su Qing immediately contacted her superior. She reported that her target's profile had been updated with crucial new information. Glancing up at the hole in the ceiling, she confirmed what she had suspected. The mysterious pioneer from the university and the formidable figure known as Tyrant were, in fact, the same person. Back in his office, her association superior listened carefully to her report. After considering the details, he issued a new command. Su Qingying was to suspend her mission for the time being. He explained that the pioneer had saved her team, eliminated the monsters, and secured the area, actions that were clearly not those of an enemy. He added that he and Major Han were not aligned on the matter, and for her own safety, and to avoid alienating a potential ally of immense power, she must cease all contact with the tyrant for now. Even as she agreed to pause the mission, Su Qingying felt compelled to share one additional observation. She told her superior that she had developed a new theory based on her previous encounter tracking Tyrant in the back mountain, where he had been cultivating his powers. Intrigued, her boss asked her to elaborate. She explained that during that encounter, she had sensed an exceptionally strong aura emanating from him. At the time, she had suspected it might be from a spiritual weapon, though she had dismissed the idea as unlikely. Now, with confirmation that he possessed two high-tier powers, the possibility seemed far more plausible. The superior's brow furrowed. Could the pioneer truly possess a spiritual weapon? Leaning back, he expressed skepticism. He argued that no solo pioneer, regardless of talent, could possibly acquire such a rare artifact without external assistance. Moreover, the team had detected no trace of a third spiritual energy, which would typically accompany a separately crafted spiritual weapon. Su Qingying quickly clarified a critical detail. The aura she had sensed during her first encounter was unmistakably Yang attribute-based. This revelation changed everything. The superior's eyes widened as the implications dawned on him. If the weapon's energy came directly from the user's own Yang energy, it meant he wasn't merely wielding a weapon. If he could forge spiritual weapons from his own energy, he must be a spirit creation realm cultivator. Such a being, though theoretically capable of solo creation, represented an almost mythical level of power. Su Qingying was stunned, aware that cultivators of that caliber were extremely rare, numbering barely more than 2 in the entire world. The superior then considered an even more alarming possibility. If the pioneer possessed a third, separate attribute, it could drastically shift the balance of power and unsettle the entire pioneer community. He explained that, according to existing research, conflicting attributes rarely coexist in the human body, and no pioneer had ever been confirmed to have 3 distinct spiritual attributes. Therefore, if the pioneer did indeed have a spiritual weapon, the absence of a detectable third energy signature might actually be a fortunate sign. Back at his apartment, Fang Yi stood under a hot shower, letting the water wash away the grime and exhaustion from his latest battle. As he dried off, his mind wandered to the state of the world. Less than a year remained until the official revival of spiritual energy, yet monsters and strange phenomena were already appearing with alarming frequency. Using his Yang attribute, he dried his clothes in an instant, his hand glowing with golden energy. Reflecting on the pioneers who had already begun cultivating on their own, his thoughts drifted to the aggressive men he had encountered at the lava river. He realized that once the connection between the body and the spiritual world was awakened, people naturally became more sensitive to the world's changes. Even without government recognition, many self-taught pioneers had already reached the 1-star Ghost Axe realm. The fact that agents like Su Qingying were now contacting wild pioneers like him indicated that both sides were cautiously exploring this new frontier in relative peace. Fang Yi's thoughts turned to Major Han and Su Qingying. For now, the monsters were under control, and no major conflicts had arisen among the pioneer groups. Yet, as he finished dressing, he knew the situation was fragile. The government had established the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association, but the public remained unaware. He understood their strategy perfectly. While the populace focused on local issues and anomalies, the government carefully balanced protection with subtle warnings, avoiding mass panic. Despite his recent victories, Fang Yi's assessment of the global situation remained grim. The government's reluctance to fully initiate the cultivation era reflected a lack of confidence. With such a large population, a sudden revelation of the truth could plunge society into chaos. Even official pioneers would be hard-pressed to prevent disaster, and the combination of internal strife and monstrous threats would only exacerbate the situation. He admitted that the government's cautious approach made sense. Human fear could prove more devastating than any beast. What troubled him most, however, was the pace at which the monsters were evolving, far faster than he had anticipated. Reviewing the creatures he had just fought, he recognized them as typical products of dark attribute contamination, specifically the Shadow sub-branch, which his system flagged as a natural enemy to pioneers and currently unabsorbable. These monsters were smarter than usual, coordinating attacks to trap and consume pioneers. They were still weaker than the true dark monsters from his previous life, creatures capable of annihilating entire nations, but the encounter had been a sobering reminder of the danger. Without him, Su Qingying and her team might have been wiped out. A spark of hope flickered as he recalled the system's words. The dark attribute's current unabsorbable state suggested that, under certain conditions, he might be able to harness its power, a potential key to future victories. He reviewed his abilities. The Golden Sun breathing technique of the Yang attribute, Divine Thunder tempering of the Thunder attribute, and the Crimson Flame blade technique. Combined with his current strength as a 3-star Ghost Axe Realm pioneer, few could rival him. Yet even surrounded by his immense power, he knew it was still insufficient. His thoughts were interrupted by the sudden ringing of his phone. Picking it up, he was surprised to see a call from his aunt. On the line, she first asked about his well-being, then explained the real reason for calling. His cousin was coming to study in the city. Concerned for her safety, she asked if the cousin could stay at his apartment for a few days instead of a hotel. Fang Yi was taken aback. His memory of her was hazy. All he could recall was a quiet, straight-a student obsessed with her studies. He barely remembered her face. Despite this, he agreed, assuring his aunt that he had a spare room. When he asked about her arrival, she simply replied that she would provide his address and let his cousin come on her own. Elsewhere, in a dimly lit room illuminated only by a computer monitor, a figure with long, claw-like fingers typed rapidly on the keyboard. Wearing a large hoodie that left her ears bare, she was just finishing a phone call with her mother. Her mother, Fang Yi's aunt, reminded her to arrive at her cousin's place by the next afternoon and promised to bring some specialty snacks. Polite but firm, she ended the call, saying it was no trouble and that she had other matters to attend to. On her screen was a group chat for the Spiritual Energy Revival Martial Arts Vanguard team. The user Lin Yi had just announced her arrival in the city and her plans to stay with her cousin. After closing the call, she opened a new window, a rumor alert about an internet-famous town nicknamed Death Town, where 3 more people had gone missing in connection to the so-called Pork Beast Challenge. A gruesome, blood-splattered image accompanied the article. With her glasses glowing in the screen light, Lin Yi recognized the town as Yonghuo Town, and her interest was immediately piqued. Her browsing was interrupted when her mother entered, asking if she had finished packing. Lin Yi replied that she was ready but preferred staying in a hotel rather than imposing on her cousin. Her mother insisted, arguing it was much safer and that she trusted the cousin completely. Gently nudging her out the door, she offered some final advice: avoid causing trouble and help around the house whenever possible. Lin Yi assured her she understood. Once the door clicked shut, she let out a small sigh, preparing herself for the visit. Adjusting her glasses, her eyes flashed with determination. No matter how difficult her cousin might be, he couldn't possibly be harder to handle than a monster. The next day, under a bright blue sky, a young woman with long dark hair and glasses rolled her suitcase toward an apartment building. Checking her phone to confirm the location, she looked up and murmured to herself that this must be the place, ready to finally meet the cousin she barely remembered. As Lin Yi stood outside the building, Fang Yi emerged carrying a bag. She called out, asking if he was her cousin. He paused, surprised, and asked her to confirm she was Lin Yi, though he admitted inwardly that he didn't recognize her at all. An awkward silence hung between them for a moment. Later, inside the apartment, they settled onto the couch and began making polite conversation. Fang Yi asked if she was in the city for a summer camp, and she confirmed it. He offered to help if she needed anything, and she thanked him politely. After their brief conversation, he handed her the key to her room, directly across from his own, before heading to his room. Watching him leave, she felt a sense of relief. Her cousin seemed easygoing and unlikely to meddle in her affairs. But Fang Yi was far from oblivious. From the moment she had sat down, he had sensed a faint, unusual spiritual aura emanating from her. He questioned whether his senses were off or if she simply wasn't skilled enough to conceal her power. Soon, he suspected she might be a pioneer. The aura was subtle but undeniable, and he realized her summer camp story was likely a cover for her true purpose in the city. Meanwhile, in her room, Lin Yi scrolled through her phone, confirming Fang Yi's suspicions. She messaged her pioneer group, the martial arts vanguard team, noting that her cousin seemed amiable and wouldn't interfere. Their chat soon shifted to recent events, particularly concerning the powerful pioneer spotted at the lava river. Lin Yi warned her team to stay vigilant, as many formidable individuals were still in hiding. After agreeing to wait for her signal, she logged off. Deciding it was best to avoid cultivation for now, she worried her cousin might discover her secret. 3 days passed. Fang Yi soon realized that living with his cousin made his cultivation difficult. His meditations were constantly at risk of interruption, like when she emerged from the bathroom wrapped only in a towel. He also worried that the bright golden aura from his breathing technique was far too conspicuous to conceal. But the most challenging part was her overwhelming kindness. One evening, she proudly presented a beautifully prepared dinner. Fang Yi insisted on doing the dishes, but she refused, insisting it was the least she could do. Her perfect manners and extreme cleanliness struck him as unusual. Despite the inconvenience, Fang Yi decided to go along with it, reasoning that letting her act so helpful might lower her guard. This was the only way he could discover her true intentions. Their quiet dinner was interrupted when her phone vibrated on the table. Both cousins glanced at it, surprise briefly flickering across their faces. Fang Yi used the moment to excuse himself, saying he would return to his room while she attended the call. She quietly replied, and once he left, she stared after him thoughtfully before picking up the phone. Sitting on her bed, her expression turned serious as she relayed information, confirming that the next great change of heaven and earth would occur tomorrow at 3 p.m. She promised she would be there. Fang Yi overheard everything. She planned to meet at the entrance of Yongho Town, a well-known suburban town about an hour away. His suspicions confirmed, he focused his spiritual energy, watching her through the wall. He was now certain she was also a pioneer, though with her current strength, she could not sense him spying. He was impressed. Though only a middle school student, she had already reached the 2-star Ghost Axe realm and was nearing another breakthrough. Her high natural talent, he surmised, explained her somewhat unusual personality. He now understood her true purpose in the city. The summer camp was just an excuse. She had learned about the upcoming great change of heaven and earth and positioned herself at its center. Fang Yi knew each of these great changes presented an opportunity to acquire a new technique to strengthen himself. He wondered what form of power would appear this time. In the end, it didn't matter. He resolved that whatever power emerged, he would claim it for himself. Suddenly, his cousin paused, sensing something unusual. She looked around, unsure whether she had imagined it or if someone had been watching. Seeing nothing but the moonlit mountains outside, she dismissed the feeling and resumed her preparations. The following day, the town of Yongho was alive with activity, the surrounding mountains forming a majestic backdrop. At the town's entrance, Lin Yi ran into a friend from her pioneer group. The friend teased her playfully about her cousin, asking if he was handsome. Lin Yi smiled and replied that he was a good person, though just an ordinary-looking guy. Her friend let out a disappointed sigh. At that moment, another woman from their group appeared, a redhead wearing a purple dress. She reminded the first friend that Lin Yi herself had always said she was just an ordinary person. With the rest of the team gathered, the redhead announced it was time to focus on their mission. One of the male members asked if a certain teammate would be joining them. The redhead shook her head, saying it would just be the 6 of them and that the missing member was always mysterious. Unbeknownst to them, Fang Yi watched quietly from the balcony of a nearby cafe, his sword resting beside him. He noted that his cousin's small squad appeared fairly low-key. From his vantage point, he could sense their strength. The weakest member was at the 2-star Ghost Axe level, while the man who had spoken was even a 3-star. He overheard them mention that their team was usually stronger, though one particularly powerful member was often absent. Fang Yi's attention soon shifted to the mountains looming over the town. His eyes narrowed, sensing that this was where something significant was about to unfold. High in the peaks, the great change of heaven and earth finally appeared. A colossal green vine descended from the clouds. Though the phenomenon appeared randomly and wasn't inherently destructive, for pioneers, it was a vital clue to understanding the shifting world around them. Deep within the misty mountains, Lin Yi and her squad finally witnessed the extraordinary sight. The red-haired leader gazed upward in awe, confirming this was exactly what they had come for. The group could hardly believe their eyes as they stood before the massive, pulsing vine. Yet their wonder soon gave way to fear. The squad's most adventurous member turned pale, trembling as she urged the others not to proceed further. She admitted that seeing the vine in person filled her with a profound sense of dread. She had heard stories of pioneers who had tried to touch the vine during its previous appearances. Though they were powerful, far stronger than she was, they had all met horrific fates. Overcome with terror, the girl clutched her head, convinced they would all share the same fate. As she spoke, reality itself seemed to shift around them. The mountain path vanished, replaced by a terrifying, pulsating red cavern. The ground beneath them writhed with grotesque organic tendrils, trapping the group in a horrifying, living nightmare. The red-haired leader and Lin Yi exchanged understanding glances with their distressed teammate. They acknowledged that they had all felt the same oppressive weight emanating from the vine. Lin Yi elaborated, describing the sensation as an absolute void within the wood-type vine. It was as if time had devoured all life within it, leaving nothing but an empty shell. This, she explained, was the source of their fear. The squad arrived at a chilling realization: the vine was attempting to consume their life force. Just as panic threatened to overtake their friend, Lin Yi seized her hand, her expression burning with fierce determination. She declared that this was the path of a martial pioneer, a journey that demanded confronting such dangers head-on unseen by the group. Fang Yi observed from a distant cliff. He too sensed the suffocating aura of death radiating from the monstrous vine. Comparing it to all the world monsters he had faced, he admitted that, apart from pure dark attribute creatures, this vine left him with the most unsettling feeling. He also recognized the squad's courage. They truly had the guts to consider cultivating in such a perilous location. Studying the monster more closely, Fang Yi noted that while it was clearly a plant, a symbol of life, it exuded an unnatural lifelessness. It wasn't truly alive, it was a hollow imitation of life, devoid of spiritual energy, tainted by the blood and remains of its previous victims. Meanwhile, Lin Yi took command of the squad. Perched on a cliff, she addressed her team with renewed purpose. With time running short, she proposed a new strategy: carefully sense the monster's energy from a distance, avoiding direct contact. Confident in her plan, Lin Yi climbed a high tree and began meditating, encasing herself in a protective bubble of blue spiritual energy. From a distant clifftop, Fang Yi observed them, impressed by their prudence. They had positioned themselves at a distance that balanced safety with effective cultivation. He silently commended his top student cousin for correctly identifying the optimal range, a stance neither reckless nor overly cautious. As Yi's cultivation soared, the spiritual energy around her surged violently. Fang Yi watched, astonished. She was on the verge of breaking through to the 3-star Ghost Axe realm. He couldn't hide his admiration. His cousin was truly gifted. In a dazzling flash of blue light, she successfully achieved the breakthrough. Her teammates stared in awe, stunned that she had reached such an advanced level of power. Deep within the forest, the dormant roots of the giant vine writhed and glowed with a terrifying green radiance. The pioneers felt the ground tremble beneath them. One man glanced back in alarm as panic spread through the group. The monstrous vine was advancing straight toward them, its tendrils bursting violently from the earth. The team's leader could hardly believe the creature had detected them from so far away. Its assault was sudden and brutal. Jagged green tendrils shot skyward, ensnaring 2 male pioneers, while the rest scattered in terror. Their friends screamed for them to warning that if they didn't escape, they would die. Realization struck the leader. Yi's breakthrough had caused too much of a disturbance, attracting the monster's attention. As she shouted a warning, dark green tendrils began wrapping around Yi's protective bubble, still fragile after her recent breakthrough. The leader knew that once the vine ensnared them, its lethal aura would consume them instantly. Under the tremendous pressure, Yi's energy shield began to crack. Chaos erupted as the red-haired leader tried to drag her panicked friend to safety. The friend cried out that they couldn't leave Yi behind, but the leader replied, desperate, asking what else they could do. Fury ignited in the friend's eyes as she demanded whether she should sacrifice her own precious spiritual energy to protect Yi, effectively dying so her teammate could grow stronger. Amid the turmoil, the red-haired leader attempted to reason with a male teammate who argued they should abandon Yi to save themselves. Coldly, he stated that life and death were dictated by fate and warned that if they didn't leave immediately, they would all perish with her. He reminded the group that their bond was accidental and that she was letting emotion cloud her judgment. But his rational words only fueled her anger. She shoved him aside, shouting that she would not abandon her teammate, even if it meant defying them all. From his perch atop the cliff, Fang Yi observed the unfolding chaos. His cousin, still just a student, seemed oblivious to the grave danger she was in, her meditative state leaving her vulnerable. The vine's power was immense, and even Fang Yi wasn't certain he could protect her with his current strength. Yet he knew he had no time to hesitate. The tendrils were already starting to crush her protective barrier. Clenching his fist, a golden aura flared around him. He had promised his aunt he would keep her safe, and a promise, once made, had to be honored. The red-haired leader sprang into action, leaping through the grasping vines toward Yi. She landed a forceful kick against one tendril, shattering it with sheer power. But her triumph was fleeting. Dozens more vines erupted, ensnaring her and leaving her completely trapped. Just as the monstrous plant prepared to crush its next victims, Yi's protective shield shattered. Before the vines could strike, Fang Yi intervened. Leaping through the air, he unleashed 2 arcs of bright golden energy from his sword. The rest of Yi's squad could only scream in horror, witnessing their comrade's shield fail. A colossal, phoenix-shaped blast of fiery energy descended from the sky, colliding with the tangled mass of vines in a deafening explosion. Fang Yi landed with grace in the now cleared area, a small pillar of golden flame rising beneath him, having saved both his cousin and her brave leader at the final moment. Floating amidst a radiant golden aura, Fang Yi's mere presence was enough to dominate the deadly vines. Descending amidst the radiant glow, Fang Yi left the pioneers shielding their eyes, barely able to comprehend the scene. The practical male pioneer who had suggested abandoning Yi was now completely dumbfounded, questioning if this newcomer was even human. The red-haired leader, equally astonished, recognized the unmistakable signature of pure yang energy. She understood that only a heightier power of this magnitude could repel a life-draining monster of such scale. The male pioneer felt a sudden crisis of confidence. He had always considered himself exceptionally talented, having ascended to the 3-star Ghost Axe realm in record time, a feat few in the nation could rival. Even Lin Yi, known for his skill, could barely match him. Yet now, faced with this mysterious newcomer, he felt completely outclassed. He glanced at his own hands, then up at the glowing figure atop the cliff, and felt utterly insignificant. If pioneers like this existed, he wondered, then what did that make him? The newcomer hadn't just defeated him, he had overwhelmed all of them with sheer, unadulterated power. Bathed in the golden radiance of his strength, Fang Yi's system activated. It had detected the extreme wood attribute from the deadly vine and immediately began auto-generating a new technique. In moments, the system displayed the details: endless vitality, a skill capable of instantly absorbing all nearby life force to rapidly heal injuries. As the vine's energy flowed into him, a surge of green, life-giving power enveloped him. Fang Yi marveled at the sheer potency of the wood attribute technique he had just acquired. He realized that with life nearby, he now possessed a near-continuous energy-absorbing engine. As he absorbed the final remnants of the anomaly's power, the system confirmed it had successfully extracted the vine's core attribute, desolation. The system described its terrifying potential, the ability to instantly generate a desolate aura, annihilating all life in the vicinity. Standing calmly within the swirling green energy, Fang Yi fully embraced the new power. When he opened his eyes, they shimmered with the same vibrant green as the desolate vine. Around him, the clearing lay lifeless, faintly glowing with a green aura. Now he understood why the vine could only thrive in such a remote, hazardous location. Anywhere else, it would drain all life for miles. He contemplated the ruthless nature of the desolation attribute, a force that forcibly stole life from others. His thoughts were interrupted by a grateful voice. The red-haired leader of the pioneer group approached, battered and bruised, her clothes torn, but alive. She thanked him profusely, insisting that without his intervention, they would all have perished. She asked how they could ever repay him. Fang Yi waved her off nonchalantly, saying no thanks were needed, and that their paths would cross again someday. He turned and walked away. Yet in his mind, he didn't feel like a hero. He knew he had merely capitalized on the opportunity provided by their intelligence. As for the conflicts he had witnessed among the pioneers, they didn't concern him. With a final leap, he soared into the air, leaving the stunned squad behind. He understood that true character was revealed in times of crisis, and a disorganized team like theirs would not survive the perils of this new era. Left alone in the empty clearing, the adventurous girl and the shaggy-haired man watched him disappear. The girl, still reeling from the shock, asked aloud what they should do next. The man, however, replied with a sharp, almost bitter tone, questioning whether she now regretted hesitating earlier to save their teammates. With the immediate danger gone and Lin Yi having reached the 3rd tier, the red-haired leader knew their safest choice was to stay united. Some time later, Yi opened her eyes, their glow a brilliant blue as she emerged from her meditation. Her teammates rushed to her side, relief written across their faces at her awakening. The male pioneer who had once suggested leaving her insisted that their fate now rested on the wisdom of their leader. Another teammate, however, argued that their attention should remain on the mysterious stranger who had rescued them. Still disoriented, Yi asked what had happened, noticing her other teammates lying unconscious around her. Standing up, she immediately felt the lingering heat of a nearby tree, still burning with the leftover yang attribute. Its intensity was unmistakable, even from a distance. The shaggy-haired man stepped forward, offering to explain what had transpired while she was unconscious. Later that day, back at her cousin's apartment, Yi struggled to comprehend the incredible events. She could hardly believe that someone of such power truly existed. Her teammates' earlier words echoed in her mind. He had called the mysterious pioneer a monster, describing how the unstoppable vines had been effortlessly pushed back and how the massive beanstalk had retreated far into the sky, no longer daring to approach. The sheer presence of the man who had saved them was overwhelming. Even though he was long gone, the calmness of the vine testified to his lingering power. Yi opened the apartment door to find Fang Yi waiting there, concern etched on his face. Noticing her pale appearance, she quickly forced a smile, brushing off his worry and blaming her fatigue on a long day of studying. Fang Yi accepted her explanation, telling her she had worked hard and should rest. He offered to order takeout for dinner, and she agreed before heading to her room. Once inside, she collapsed onto her bed, utterly exhausted. She knew that breakthroughs were mentally taxing, demanding immense focus. She felt more drained than if she had stayed awake for a month straight. Scrolling through her phone, she felt a measure of relief. She was no longer an ordinary person. She could survive more than a few sleepless nights. She accepted that this constant, life-threatening struggle was now the fate of a pioneer in a world that had begun to change. Thoughts of her cousin's seemingly normal, peaceful life reminded her that such a life was no longer possible for her. Her quiet reflections were interrupted by a new message in her pioneer group chat. It was from Guyon, the enigmatic, powerful member who rarely appeared. The message was brief and direct. If there are any more traces of that strong man, please inform me. This was the first time Guyon had ever spoken in the group, immediately capturing Yi's attention. She responded affirmatively and then posed her own question. Could the man who had saved them be the same one from the Dark River Lava Dragon incident, and if so, why would he have helped them? The group chat immediately erupted with a post about the mysterious high-tier Yang attribute master. The post vividly described his sun-splitting slash, recounting how a witness had been forced out of a cave by a searing blast of white-hot light. The author claimed with absolute certainty that no other pioneer in the sea country could rival. Meanwhile, Fang Yi rode through the evening streets on his bicycle. He was confident that after the day's events, his cousin would be less suspicious, allowing him freedom of movement without raising alarms. With this newfound liberty, he had a new mission in mind, finding a suitable carrier for his recently acquired desolation attribute. He knew this power resonated most naturally with plants, and so his search began under the night sky. As he pedaled, Fang Yi contemplated the best way to utilize the desolation attribute. Despite its tremendous power, its nature was inherently destructive and corrupt. He worried that fusing it with his own body might cause adverse reactions. Additionally, he feared that its malevolent energy could clash with the purifying essence of his thunder attribute. His solution, he concluded, was to entrust the attribute to a carrier, a living conduit, perhaps akin to the mysterious vine itself. He reasoned that the original vine monster had likely evolved when a normal plant detected an influx of rich spiritual energy, manifesting the desolation attribute as a means to absorb greater power. With a plan forming, a confident smirk crossed his face. He knew precisely where he needed to go, guided by a moonlit path and a sign pointing toward the forest park. Fang Yi arrived at a sprawling urban park. Leaving his bike behind, he ventured into the woods. Under the bright full moon, he stepped into a field of radiant, glowing flowers. He needed to find the ideal candidate, a plant that could form the strongest connection with his spiritual energy, one that could sense closeness to him. Closing his eyes, Fang Yi extended his spiritual energy outward. A vibrant green aura flowed from him, sweeping across the forest and enveloping the plants. He felt their response, a wave of energy rising to meet his, though it was not yet sufficient for his purposes. Continuing to broadcast his energy, he focused on eliciting a stronger reaction. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to a single spot in the grass. There, amid the tall blades, stood a lone white flower with a glowing center, swaying gently as if beckoning him. Fang Yi approached cautiously, wondering if this was the one he had been searching for. He extended his hand and touched the flower with his fingertip. The petals closed around his finger, drawing in the spiritual energy he offered. Then, with a soft flourish, the flower reopened, vibrant and seemingly nourished, as though it had just received a feast. Fang Yi knelt beside the small flower, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He sensed its strong spiritual presence. Though it was only a humble plant, it responded to his touch like an eager puppy, greedily absorbing his spiritual energy and brushing against his fingers for more. He knew instantly, this would be his carrier. Among the entire forest, this tiny flower had reacted most strongly to his aura, making it the perfect vessel for the desolation attribute. He spoke to the flower, calling it the chosen one, and asked if it was ready. Without waiting for a reply, he released a swirling vortex of green spiritual energy, directing it entirely at the small white blossom. A system window appeared, prompting confirmation. Do you want to forcibly implant the desolation attribute into this plant? His eyes shone a vivid green as he gave his consent. A brilliant light erupted from his hand, and the flower began to transform. Its petals unfurled into a larger, more intricate, and powerful form. In a dazzling flash of green, the implantation completed. Fang Yi blinked in surprise. The once simple white flower had been utterly transformed. Its petals now resembled a magnificent lotus, its leaves thick, vibrant, and radiating a potent green aura. The flower immediately demonstrated its power. Waves of desolation energy surged outward, its roots sinking deep into the soil as it drew energy. The effect was immediate and devastating. The surrounding healthy forest was drained within seconds, trees withering and the ground turning to dust. Fang Yi marveled at the sheer destructive potential of the desolation attribute. Within moments, the energy had consumed the entire section of forest and was still spreading rapidly. As the flower's glow dimmed and its form shrank slightly, Fang Yi realized he needed to leave. If the process continued, the massive energy disturbance would undoubtedly draw the attention of the Spiritual Energy Association. Carefully, he uprooted the glowing flower. Roots and all, this park had been a risky place for such an experiment. Situated close to the city center, it was surely monitored by the association, which remained vigilant over the revival of spiritual energy and the danger it posed even to ordinary plants. He had noticed the increased surveillance cameras and the complete absence of other people upon his arrival. Walking away with his new prize, he observed something extraordinary. The flower continued to absorb energy from the air, thriving even without its roots in the ground. Fascinated, Fang Yi studied it closely, a smile of wonder spreading across his face. Its spirituality hadn't diminished at all since being uprooted, especially remarkable for a flower that had been an ordinary wild plant moments before. He drew a profound conclusion. By imbuing the flower with the desolation attribute, he had unlocked its evolutionary potential, setting it on a path far beyond what it was naturally meant to become. Just as Fang Yi prepared to leave the park, a loud alarm erupted, red lights flashing throughout the forest. A robotic voice blared a warning. Abnormal value exceeded. Fang Yi's eyes narrowed. Despite his speed, he had still triggered the park's monitoring system. Wasting no time, he grasped the desolation flower firmly and hurriedly made his escape. Miles away, in a high-tech control room marked Spiritual Energy Revival Plant Research Department, alarms blared relentlessly. Technicians scrambled, shouting that the anomaly readings were spiraling out of control and demanding explanations. Orders were issued immediately. All personnel were to equip protective bracelets, enter the park, and seal off the area, preventing anyone from entering or leaving. A fully geared team stepped into the now lifeless section of the forest. One member checked his wrist device, an alarmingly high reading of 30. For perspective, the incident at Xinjiang University had only reached 8 to 10, and even the fearsome Dark River lava dragon had peaked at 25. Another researcher added that the park's normal spiritual energy had never exceeded 10. As one member collected soil samples, another reported a bizarre observation. Air humidity, surface temperature, and sunlight were all completely normal. Plants appeared to have been drained of life in mere seconds. The team leader insisted they approach the center to investigate which spiritual attribute could have caused such devastation. Before anyone could move forward, a senior researcher with glasses shouted sharply, halting their progress. With grave authority, he warned them not to touch anything, identifying the residual energy as the desolation attribute. Then, with piercing seriousness, he asked if any of them knew about the vine that had recently descended from the sky. The younger researchers fell silent, frozen. One of them finally spoke, voice trembling, realizing the senior was referring to the infamous, devilish vine, and a level mutation feared across the world. The senior researcher confirmed their worst fears. This parasitic ability consumed the life force of every surrounding creature, converting everything it touched into its own. The young researcher who had almost stepped into the dead zone clutched his chest, drenched in sweat, gasping for breath. The senior researcher explained that any plant awakening the desolation attribute created a dead zone, where anyone who entered would have their life force consumed. He recalled seeing similar data from Sha country, a decayed ancient tree in a forbidden area of Wan City that annihilated all life near it. Surveying the barren clearing before him, his expression grew serious. The emergence of mutated plants in this new era could no longer be ignored. From their research, the desolation attribute was the most potent a plant could awaken. His lecture was interrupted when a hand landed on his shoulder. The research team turned to find Major Han, his face stern, arriving with a contingent of soldiers. Already briefed on the situation, the Major ordered all researchers to change into advanced protective suits his team had brought and to follow him into the contaminated zone. With Major Han leading, the newly equipped team, joined by Su Qingying, stepped cautiously into the dead zone. Using their scanners, they quickly encountered perplexing anomalies. They could not detect the source of the desolation energy, and its aura was fading rapidly. Within minutes, the energy level dropped to 25, contrary to what they expected, as the celestial vine was thought to be mobile. Major Han suggested to Su Qingying that they investigate the area more thoroughly, and she nodded, her expression grave. Meanwhile, two team members with glowing blue auras traced residual spiritual energy from the edges of the dead zone to a single origin. As they neared, their faces reflected shock. Both the Major and Su Qingying simultaneously grasped the horrifying truth: the source of the desolation energy had been extracted. One researcher, still in a protective suit, could hardly comprehend it, questioning how such a feat was even possible. Major Han realized that whoever could enter a desolation dead zone and remove its source must be a person of extraordinary power. Su Qingying had another insight. She revealed a glowing data pad, explaining that big data analysis had pinpointed a figure whose movements matched both this incident and a recent mutation. The file on the screen displayed a picture of Fang Yi, his name clearly visible. Major confirmed to Su Qingying that he would send her all of Fang Yi's information, verifying he was likely the same pioneer she had encountered before. Tipping his hat, he added that handling the rest was up to her association. Left alone in the desolate woods, Su Qingying stared at the data pad with a grim expression. 2 hours later, in his apartment, Fang Yi carefully placed the newly obtained desolation flower into a small pot. Smiling, he reflected that it was his first time nurturing a flower. He affectionately named it the obedient little white flower, telling it that with its desolation attribute, it would cultivate itself into a powerful ally. He knew its life-draining abilities would be invaluable in battle, and its unassuming appearance made it easy to conceal from his cousin. Gently touching a petal, he reminded himself that in this dangerous new world, raw strength alone was not enough. Secret weapons would be just as vital. His quiet evening was interrupted by his phone buzzing. He picked it up, surprised to see the caller ID, Old Wang. Immediately, he recognized the name, Wang Liang, his childhood friend, whom he hadn't seen in 3 years since he had joined the army. A brief flashback showed their once close bond, severed when Wang Liang suddenly enlisted. Fang Yi answered the call. Wang Liang's cheerful voice greeted him, asking if he was back in town and inviting him for a drink at their old hangout. Fang Yi was taken aback by the suddenness of it all. Wang Liang laughed, teasing that he had a big secret to reveal and warned Fang Yi not to be shocked when he heard it. After the call ended, it was revealed that Wang Liang was not alone. He was in a dimly lit room, reporting to a stern, scarred woman with long red hair, dressed in a high-ranking military uniform. Su Qingying was also present. Wang Liang confirmed that he had completed his assignment and made a special request. If Fang Yi turned out not to be the person they sought, they should ensure his safety. The red-haired officer, tapping her fingers impatiently on the table, dismissed his concerns coldly. She ordered him to focus solely on his mission, warning against unnecessary actions. With chilling detachment, she added that if Fang Yi was the wrong target, Wang Liang should consider it punishment for his friend. At a quiet bar, Fang Yi and Wang Liang clinked their beer glasses in a toast. They sat down, catching up after 3 long years apart. Fang Yi noticed that his old friend seemed noticeably more mature, surmising that his time in the army must have been grueling. Wang Liang recounted some of his experiences in the military before asking how Fang Yi had been. Fang Yi gave a simple reply: he was doing well and had attended college. As he sipped his beer, his thoughts drifted to his past life. Back then, during the chaos, he had never had the chance to see Wang Liang again. He recalled that his friend, as a soldier, had likely perished in some forgotten battle. Fang Yi wondered if, in this new life, he might be able to alter his friend's fate. The conversation shifted, and Wang Liang's tone grew serious. He asked Fang Yi if he had noticed anything unusual lately, zombies, monsters, or phenomena from the movies. Instantly on guard, Fang Yi sensed this wasn't mere curiosity. For a soldier to know about spiritual energy revival wasn't surprising, but the directness of the question felt like a test of his knowledge. Playing dumb, he asked what Wang Liang meant. Wang Liang sighed, explaining that he wasn't trying to comfort Fang Yi, he was warning him. Soon, everything they valued, education, wealth, status, would become meaningless. The world order as they knew it was about to shift. Fang Yi listened intently, expression unreadable, eyes fixed on his empty glass. He knew ordinary soldiers were bound to secrecy and couldn't reveal anything about the spiritual energy revival. This confirmed his suspicion. The military had identified him as a potential target, and Wang Liang, his childhood friend, had been sent to probe him. Seeing Fang Yi remain calm, Wang Liang attempted reassurance. He told him not to worry, emphasizing that as long as he kept silent, he would remain safe. But Fang Yi understood fully. His friend, risking military protocol, was still trying to help him. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted when Wang Liang's phone vibrated urgently. He answered, and a furious voice barked orders: return to the team immediately and report to the target location within 10 minutes. Wang Liang snapped to attention, obeying instantly as Fang Yi observed in silence. Apologizing, Wang Liang explained that he couldn't accompany Fang Yi home due to the urgent mission. But as he turned to leave, Fang Yi dropped the act. He asked if the mission was connected to the spiritual energy revival and insisted on coming along. Wang Liang paused, turning back with a mixture of shock and confusion. Fang Yi stepped forward, grabbing his friend by the collar, and demanded to be taken to his superiors. He reassured Wang Liang, explaining that he didn't know exactly what his superiors were aware of, but he trusted that Wang Liang would never harm him. He made it clear that his interest lay in understanding what the military was dealing with, knowing it must relate to the massive changes occurring in the world. Since the Spiritual Energy Association was already handling monsters, he was determined to witness the military's role firsthand. Wang Liang nodded, and the two of them made their way toward a massive, heavily guarded military base nestled in a mountain valley, marked as Military Base Number 19, Spiritual Forbidden Zone. They were soon confronted by a squad of soldiers. One of them barked at Wang Liang to return to his team. After a brief inspection, the soldiers allowed Fang Yi to enter the base, leading him through a brightly lit corridor. Inside, a large group of soldiers was locked in a desperate battle, crackling blue energy arcing around them as they tried to hold back a monstrous. The beast retaliated with immense power, firing a devastating red energy beam that tore through the soldiers' ranks, eliciting cries of pain and terror. On a raised platform, a stern red-haired officer observed the chaos with critical eyes. Fang Yi, standing before her, quickly assessed the creature and recognized its power as a hybrid of two distinct attributes. The officer confirmed his observation. The monster was a perfect fusion of dark and flame energies, making it both exceptionally dangerous and cruel. She noted that it had already inflicted serious injuries on several of her soldiers. A caption identified her as 3-star Ghost Axe Realm Officer Ji Lan. Spotting Wang Liang, she called his name sharply, and he immediately snapped to attention. She demanded an explanation for bringing an unauthorized person into a restricted area, but before he could respond, she softened slightly. Acknowledging the urgency of the situation, she told him to forget it and instructed him to join the formation immediately. Her gaze then turned to Fang Yi. She detected nothing extraordinary in him. His spiritual energy was only faintly active. For a moment, she wondered if he might be the powerful pioneer they had been seeking, but quickly dismissed the thought, focusing on the ongoing battle. She issued him a stern warning. As Wang Liang's friend, she would say little, but he was now in a restricted zone, and his life was his own responsibility. He was also bound to secrecy regarding anything he witnessed. Fang Yi simply acknowledged, understood. With that settled, Ji Lan took command. She lifted a massive energy cannon and called out the names of 2 soldiers. They immediately sprang into action, their bodies enveloped in blue energy as they engaged the creature up close. Ji Lan then aimed her cannon and fired a colossal blast of pure energy directly at the monster. The attack struck with immense force, triggering a massive explosion, but the creature remained far from defeated. It let out a furious roar as its shadowy form pulsed with a menacing red light, its fanged maw widening threateningly. The blast had only intensified its fury, accelerating its mutation. With a violent swipe of its massive claws, it struck toward a soldier. A comrade shouted a warning just in time. The soldier blocked the blow, but the sheer force sent him hurtling backward. Ji Lan immediately took command, instructing her team to remain vigilant and maintain their distance. She knew the creature had to be eliminated before it could complete its evolution. Fang Yi observed from the sidelines, impressed by the soldiers' performance. Each team member moved with precision, trust, and perfect coordination. It was clear to him that their combined efforts created a force far greater than any individual strength. However, his admiration was short-lived. The monster's power was escalating at an alarming rate. Fang Yi shouted a warning, urging the soldiers to retreat. They were no match for the creature in its current form. But his words were drowned in the chaos. A massive blast of dark purple energy erupted from the monster, hurling the soldiers backward. Ji Lan refused to yield. With a fierce roar, she ordered her team to raise their alert level and enhance the mutation containment measures for the restricted area. She commanded that no one retreat. But it was already too late. The monster had completed its transformation. Now towering as a massive demonic beast, its body engulfed in black and red flames, its eyes glowed with pure malevolence. One soldier screamed in terror. The evil dog had fully merged with dark energy, completing its mutation. Its single eye, now a burning crimson orb, locked onto a new target, Wang Liang. Frozen in fear, he could only stare as the monster prepared to strike. Ji Lan and Fang Yi both reacted with horror, realizing that Wang Liang's life was in imminent danger. As the creature lunged forward, releasing a devastating surge of power, a soldier was violently thrown backward. Ji Lan immediately shouted, alerting her team that the SE-level evil dog had fully mutated and was now classified as a level threat, forcing an immediate revision of their battle strategy. The soldier hit the ground, coughing up blood. Fang Yi rushed to his side, steadying him and asking if he was okay. Weakly, the soldier explained that he had been attempting to channel spiritual energy into the monster's restraining collar, but the creature's evolution had caused the device to violently explode. Despite coughing up thick, black liquid, the soldier forced a brave smile, telling Fang Yi not to worry about the officers of Restricted Area 19. Fang Yi, however, could only glare at him with grim, simmering anger. Realizing her conventional weapons were useless, Ji Lan dropped her massive energy cannon to the ground. Standing before her remaining troops, her resolve unshaken, she issued one final, desperate command. No matter the cost, even their lives, they must not let this B-level mutation escape the restricted zone. Just as she and her team prepared for a last stand, Fang Yi stepped directly in front of her, blocking their path. Ji Lan demanded what he thought he was doing, but he ignored her. His eyes and hands ignited with a radiant blue glow, arcs of raw lightning crackling across his form, a clear sign he was about to enter the fray himself. Encircled by surging blue electricity, Fang Yi taunted the monstrous creature, his eyes blazing with power as he questioned its strength. Then, with terrifying speed, he charged. His arm became a bolt of pure blue energy, aimed straight for the beast's head. Upon impact, a colossal explosion of divine thunder erupted, utterly overwhelming the monster. The force of the strike unleashed a shockwave that sent nearby soldiers hurtling backward. One stunned soldier whispered in disbelief, realizing that this was the same B-level creature their commander, Ji Lan, hadn't been able to defeat alone. Wang Liang, equally astonished, turned to Ji Lan and asked if Fang Yi was truly who they suspected. With unwavering seriousness, Ji Lan confirmed their fears. He was indeed the legendary pioneer known as the Tyrant. Fang Yi stood calmly before the still-burning monster, noting that while it was badly injured, it wasn't completely finished. He told Ji Lan and Wang Liang to step back for their own safety. Ji Lan observed him, marveling at the fact that her entire squad had needed a complex formation just to confront a B-level threat, yet here he was, ready to take it down alone. She couldn't help but think about the magnitude of his power. Even now, he was one of the top-tier pioneers in the nation. And once the spiritual energy revival reached its peak, she realized his potential could become truly limitless, the most extreme embodiment of the thunder attribute she had ever witnessed. As Fang Yi raised his hand, channeling even more electrical energy, Ji Lan's eyes widened in shock. She looked up to see a colossal storm of thunderous energy swirling above him, and couldn't help but wonder just how terrifying his power might become as he continued to evolve. With a decisive step forward, Fang Yi unleashed the full might of his thunder attribute. A towering pillar of brilliant blue lightning erupted from the ground where the monster had stood, a display of raw power befitting his code name, the Tyrant. His eyes, still flickering with residual electricity, reflected calm determination as the blinding light from his attack began to fade. The surviving soldiers watched in awe and fear. One whispered to another, his body trembling, realizing that while Fang Yi could handle the monster's corrosive dark energy, the sheer destructive force of thunder operated on an entirely different scale. Once the dust settled, Fang Yi casually gave a thumbs up to his friend, signaling that the threat had been neutralized. Wang Liang hurried over, exclaiming in relief that Fang Yi had scared him half to death. Overjoyed, he playfully punched Fang Yi on the shoulder, laughing that he never imagined his old friend could be this formidable. The mood shifted as Wang Liang apologized, confessing that he had suspected Fang Yi was extraordinary but had no choice but to follow orders. Fang Yi waved it off, teasing him about being overly formal after 3 years apart and assuring him that he understood. Their reunion was soon interrupted by Ji Lan, who approached them formally. She extended her hand in gratitude, thanking Fang Yi for his assistance. With a slight smile, Fang Yi accepted, replying that it was no trouble and that his main concern had been saving his friend. Ji Lan then introduced herself properly as the warden of Forbidden Area 019. She explained that since Fang Yi had saved the entire base, she needed to file an official report and asked if he could leave his contact information. Fang Yi agreed without hesitation, while Wang Liang looked on in silent amazement, astonished to see his stern commanding officer act so respectfully toward his childhood friend. With formalities concluded, Ji Lan spoke directly and with seriousness. She acknowledged that Fang Yi's strength surpassed that of many of the military's own special pioneers and formally extended an invitation for him to join their ranks. Yet, she admitted that an offer from a single base warden like herself might not be sufficient to persuade him. Internally, she was still grappling with the enormity of his power. What struck her most was the revelation that he was also a 3-star Ghost Axe realm cultivator, like herself. Yet, his abilities far exceeded the known limits of that realm, marking him as a monster of extraordinary strength. Fang Yi, calm as ever, asked Ji Lan if she truly felt unworthy of extending the invitation. Burdened by the authority of her superiors, she confirmed his observation. There was nothing to deny. She explained that the order to involve him had come from high command and expressed confidence that they would personally come to invite him in the future. Fang Yi chuckled softly, telling her there was no need for such formalities. Placing a hand over his chest, he expressed genuine respect for all of them. He admitted that he had never seen soldiers fight before, and what he had witnessed had deeply moved him. Touched by his sincerity, Ji Lan could only offer a quiet thanks. He then made a counteroffer. If they ever encountered trouble in the future, they could call upon him for assistance, just as they had once aided ordinary people like him. However, he added one vital condition: they could never interfere with his personal cultivation or restrict his freedom. The unexpected stipulation left Ji Lan momentarily speechless. With matters settled, Fang Yi announced that it was getting late and that he should be leaving. Ji Lan agreed, explaining that she and Wang Liang still needed to dispose of the mutated creature's body and that she would arrange for someone to escort him back. As he stood among the soldiers, Fang Yi finally grasped the military's true purpose in this new era. He realized that they stationed themselves in these dangerous, spiritually potent zones for 2 reasons: to harness the energy for their own training and, more importantly, to act as a critical line of defense between the ordinary world and the strange monsters now threatening it. After his departure, Ji Lan turned to Wang Liang. She remarked that Fang Yi could no longer be described with a word as simple as impressive. What they had witnessed was only a fraction of his true power. That a pioneer could ascend to such a high level so quickly demonstrated extraordinary insight. She concluded that he was a rare combination of luck, courage, and raw ability, all the qualities needed for greatness. Observing his commander's deep respect for him, Wang Liang eagerly suggested that if Ji Lan felt she wasn't the right person to recruit him, she should allow him, as his childhood friend, to take on the task. Ji Lan, however, quickly brought him back to reality with a sharp tap on the head, ordering him to stop talking and help clean up. Wang Liang could do nothing but comply as he was pulled off to work. Later that night, atop the roof of his apartment building, Fang Yi sat in meditation, enveloped in a radiant golden aura. His mind wandered to his earlier encounter with the military. He knew that while the meeting had revealed his identity, he had only displayed his thunder attribute, keeping the full scope of his abilities hidden. Judging by their respectful demeanor, he decided this was advantageous. He understood now that his rare thunder attribute was a perfect counter against the dark monsters the military had been battling, making him an invaluable asset. It was clear they would seek to recruit him rather than pose a threat, offering access to rapid cultivation techniques and the most advanced intelligence. The day's experiences had also clarified the roles of the nation's 2 main pioneer forces. The military, led by Ji Lan, acted as night watchers, silently safeguarding the nation. The Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association, with agents like Su Qingying, managed threats that slipped into urban areas, prioritizing civilian safety. Fang Yi grasped the government's two-pronged strategy: contain the greatest dangers within forbidden zones while gradually releasing information to the public. This measured approach was buying precious time, preventing society from collapsing into chaos. As his meditation deepened, a brilliant orb of golden energy pulsed within him. Despite having absorbed the rich energy of the forbidden zone, he hadn't initially felt the urge to level up, but that quickly changed. Golden energy surged through his body, veins of power cracking across his face. Even a short exposure to such spiritual richness had filled him completely. He recognized the unmistakable signs. He was on the brink of another breakthrough. Meanwhile, on the streets below, his cousin Lin Yi walked home carrying groceries, wondering if Fang Yi had returned. She had been planning to have him taste her cooking. Her casual thoughts were instantly shattered when she looked up and saw a massive pillar of golden light erupting into the night sky above their apartment building. Her eyes widened in shock. A reflection of a flaming divine axe appeared in her vision, initially making her think of the energy associated with a ghost axe realm advancement. But the scale was far beyond that, too immense for a normal breakthrough. She could only stare in disbelief, realizing that an extraordinarily powerful pioneer was making their presence known in the city. On the street, Lin Yi's gaze remained fixed on the sky, utterly astonished. The energy she was witnessing dwarfed even the ghost axe realm. It was reshaping reality itself. A colossal divine hand, formed entirely of golden energy, materialized in the clouds above. Fear and awe washed over her as the truth struck. This was the legendary spirit creation realm. The realization that a pioneer of such overwhelming power lived right next door sent a surge of shock and terror through her. The massive energy surge did not go unnoticed. Miles away, in a state-of-the-art command center, red alarms screamed as technicians scrambled in chaos. A warning flashed urgently across their screens. The anomaly value had spiked to a catastrophic 99, its epicenter located southeast of the city. Both an official and Su Qingying reacted with immediate alarm. The official demanded an explanation, instructing all units to mobilize toward the target zone. Su Qingying, meanwhile, questioned how such a powerful anomaly could have gone undetected, pointing out that an energy reading of this magnitude could easily obliterate an entire city. Before a holographic map of the city, military leaders convened an emergency meeting, tension thick in the air. They debated the two horrifying possibilities. Either a new god-like spirit creation pioneer had emerged, or the city was teetering on the edge of catastrophic disaster. The situation intensified as a senior official frantically contacted headquarters, demanding that all advanced equipment be dispatched, everything short of full-scale weaponry. His panic, however, was cut short when a subordinate burst into the room, gasping for breath, announcing that the alert had been rescinded. The anomaly was not a monster but a pioneer undergoing a promotion. Fang Yi exhaled quietly in relief. The breakthrough was complete. He had successfully ascended to the one-star spirit creation realm. Aside from his body feeling lighter and more agile, he sensed little change in his raw power. His quiet moment was interrupted by the buzz of his phone. A new message had arrived from his friend Wang Liang, a warning. A fresh anomaly had appeared on the playground at Xincheng University. Internal military sources had confirmed it was a pollution zone, and, more alarmingly, this was the second occurrence of this particular anomaly. Fang Yi replied, noting he was aware of the previous heat anomaly. Wang Liang confirmed it was indeed the same one and playfully warned Fang Yi not to reveal that he was the source of the intelligence. Fang Yi joked about reporting him, but Wang Liang's tone quickly grew serious. He urged Fang Yi to be careful, genuinely concerned for his safety. Fang Yi set his phone aside, his expression thoughtful. His friend's warning only validated his own strategy. This was why he remained cautious around both the military and the association, being too well-known invited trouble. It was also why he had kept his Yang Flame attribute and Crimson Flame Blade technique secret, his hidden trump cards. He typed a final response, reassuring Wang Liang not to worry. He would remain careful, and he still had powerful cards left to play. Lin Yi stepped into the apartment, announcing her return. Spotting Fang Yi lounging on the couch, she asked if he had eaten and held out the bag of takeout she had brought. Absorbed in his phone, he told her to leave it on the table and that he would eat later. Watching him, a mix of worry and mild frustration crossed her face. In her mind, she reflected on her cousin's personality. She considered him a good person at heart, but plagued by one glaring flaw, his laziness. He seemed perfectly content to stay at home all day, glued to his phone, with no ambition to even attend college. The irony struck her. While she and her fellow pioneers were constantly busy seeking opportunities and concealing their true identities, her cousin led a carefree, almost aimless life. Exhausted, she went to her room and collapsed onto her bed. She knew that news of the incredible spirit creation pioneer recently appearing in their district would spread like wildfire. Feeling a sense of responsibility, she resolved that when the time came, she would protect her seemingly oblivious cousin as a way of repaying him. Meanwhile, Fang Yi was far from merely playing on his phone. He was analyzing the news report from Wang Liang, which detailed a massive fire raging across the university playground. He noted the progression. The first anomaly had been extreme heat, and now there was a sudden, terrifying blaze. He speculated that this could be another manifestation of the Yang attribute. The video showed the fire erupting rapidly and burning with horrifying intensity. Online witnesses expressed shock, with some wondering if special forces were being summoned for a seemingly ordinary fire. The report also mentioned that all nearby trees and flower beds had been incinerated, and the area was now completely sealed off. Fang Yi observed that the video was brief and cut off abruptly, yet it was clear that this incident was far more severe than the previous anomaly at the university. He pondered what might distinguish this new manifestation of the Yang attribute. Realizing he would need to investigate in person, he knew entry into the sealed area would require contacting his military acquaintance, Ji Lan. The following day, a throng of reporters had gathered outside the blocked gates of Qincheng University, shouting questions about the fire that reportedly couldn't be extinguished and demanding to know why such a major incident wasn't being covered by the media. As the crowd pressed forward, Ji Lan and Fang Yi arrived. Onlookers were struck by the presence of these two imposing figures. The soldiers at the gate immediately opened the passage, letting them through without question, leaving the reporters outside bewildered at how they had bypassed the blockade so effortlessly. Inside the cordoned-off area, they gazed upon the smoldering remains of the university playground. Fang Yi remarked on the astonishing level of destruction, questioning if this was the legendary sky fire he had heard about. Ji Lan confirmed the name and explained its terrifying nature. It appeared without warning, could not be extinguished by conventional means, and would burn unchecked until everything within its reach was reduced to ash. In her opinion, the name was indeed fitting. After finishing the initial inspection, Ji Lan told Fang Yi that she needed to head to the principal's office and asked if he would wait for her. He replied that she could go ahead, assuring her he would be fine there. Alone, Fang Yi strolled along the edge of the destroyed area, now cordoned off with yellow tape. He knelt down and placed his hand on the scorched earth. As he analyzed the scene, he noted that the ground had already cooled. More importantly, the spiritual energy from the skyfire had completely dissipated. A twinge of disappointment hit him. He realized he couldn't extract its attribute, and that his plan had been too simplistic. His thoughts were abruptly interrupted by a familiar voice calling his name. Looking up, he saw his ex-girlfriend Chu Qingli standing on the steps with a friend. She asked in surprise what he was doing there. The friend, wearing glasses, immediately recognized him and asked if he was the ex-boyfriend Chu Qingli had mentioned, the one who had only gotten into a vocational college. Chu Qingli simply nodded. With a smug, condescending smile, her friend patted Chu Qingli's shoulder and addressed Fang Yi directly. She assumed he was lingering because he was still hung up on his ex, and pointed out that the gap between their lives was now too wide, he should just let go. Fang Yi stared back, genuinely puzzled at her assumption, silently questioning why anyone would think he still cared about her. From a distance, other students had begun whispering and gossiping. They speculated about the man with Chu Qingli, guessing he must be another hopeless admirer. They noted that he didn't appear to be a student at their university and complained that security had allowed an outsider in. The friend with glasses stepped forward aggressively. Confronting Fang Yi, she warned him that Chu Qingli was now a prominent figure on campus and that he needed to consider his actions carefully. Countless other men far better than him were pursuing her, and he didn't even rank among them. She ordered him to leave immediately, asserting that he didn't belong there, and threatened to report him to the disciplinary office if he failed to explain how he had gained entry. Chu Qingli watched silently, a complex expression on her face. She remembered him from before, believing he wouldn't regret their breakup. Yet, here he was. She concluded that his previous indifference must have been an act, a brave face hiding something deeper. Their confrontation was cut short when Ji Lan returned, asking Fang Yi if the girl was a friend of his. Chu Qingli's eyes widened in surprise at the sudden appearance of the imposing red-haired woman. Fang Yi calmly dismissed the notion, explaining that they had only been high school classmates and couldn't be considered friends. Ji Lan accepted the explanation with a simple acknowledgement, adding that they were just classmates. Ji Lan then slid on a pair of sunglasses, amplifying her already formidable presence. Both Chu Qingli and her friend visibly tensed, unnerved by the woman's powerful aura and wondering how she could even know someone like Fang Yi. Turning to him, Ji Lan delivered an update. She had spoken with the principal, and the Skyfire incident was more complicated than initially thought. The principal would be coming to take them to the origin point of the fire. Since Fang Yi was now a special military consultant, his presence was required. Fang Yi agreed without hesitation. Just then, a group of stern-looking officials in suits arrived, commanding everyone to disperse and announcing that the playground was to remain off-limits. Chu Qingli gasped in shock, instantly recognizing the man leading the group as the university's principal. The other students were equally astonished. The principal was known to be exceptionally busy and nearly impossible to find, rarely seen on campus. Their awe grew as they realized he had come personally to meet Fang Yi and the mysterious red-haired woman. Chu Qingli's friend, however, completely misread the situation. She smirked, assuming the principal had finally arrived to reprimand the two intruders. Chu Qingli, meanwhile, stayed silent, uncertainty etched across her face. To the absolute disbelief of both Chu Qingli and her friend, the principal and his entourage did not approach Fang Yi and Ji Lan as trespassers. Instead, the elderly principal strode straight to Fang Yi and extended a warm, respectful handshake. He addressed him as the consultant introduced by Ji Lan, expressing his concern over the school's recent anomalies and the safety of its students. He conveyed his immense relief that Fang Yi had arrived to resolve the situation. In a gesture that left everyone stunned, the principal bowed slightly to Fang Yi, officially placing him in charge of the entire playground matter. From her vantage point, Chu Qingli could only watch, her eyes widening in disbelief as her entire perception of her ex-boyfriend was upended in an instant. The principal's security detail moved to secure the area, forming a human barrier and instructing all unrelated bystanders to step back. As the students, including Chu Qingli, were pushed away, confusion buzzed through the crowd. They could not comprehend why their respected principal was bowing to such a young man. Amid the murmurs, Chu Qingli overheard the shifting opinions. Some speculated that Fang Yi must possess an extraordinary identity to receive such deference. Others recalled that just moments earlier, he had been dismissed as her suitor or ex-boyfriend. Whispers spread about the complete reversal of status, with some suggesting that now, even if she tried to pursue him, she might not even get his attention. The final, cutting realization hit when the crowd noticed that throughout the entire exchange, Fang Yi had not once glanced at or acknowledged Chu Qingli, leaving her standing alone, completely ignored. At Qincheng University's North District, the principal led Fang Yi and Ji Lan to the site of the anomaly. He began recounting the series of events, starting with the Golden Sun incident, which he had hoped would mark the end of their troubles. But a few nights ago, a fire had erupted on a playground, an inferno so fierce that even the fire department couldn't extinguish it. Fortunately, it had happened at night, when no students were present, allowing the area to be quickly sealed off. The principal's expression grew grim as he continued. While one fire might have been an isolated incident, it had been followed by two more on separate playgrounds. He described witnessing a crimson flame descend from the sky and hover in midair, a clear sign of a supernatural occurrence. Although the other fires were eventually controlled, one stubborn blaze still remained. As they approached the final location, Fang Yi caught a sharp, choking smell of burning. They arrived at a basketball court, where a single hoop burned with an unyielding, eternal flame. The principal confirmed that this was the starting point, the one fire that simply could not be extinguished. Watching the anomaly, Ji Lan checked a device on her wrist. It's a basic spiritual anomaly detector, she explained to Fang Yi. Any reading above 10 is considered dangerous for ordinary people and requires a full lockdown. Suddenly, the device flashed and beeped frantically. The reading shot up to 60. Ji Lan shouted in alarm at the skyrocketing value. Panicked, she warned the principal that if the energy continued to rise, it wouldn't just affect the university, it could engulf the entire city. She insisted that an elite squad of pioneers be dispatched immediately to contain the threat. Before any action could be taken, Fang Yi acted on his own. Without a word, he leapt over the chain-link fence, ignoring the "no entry" signs, and plunged directly into the fire. Flames enveloped him instantly as Ji Lan and the principal watched, stunned. At that exact moment, her device spiked again, now showing an incredible 110. Ji Lan's voice trembled as she shouted, "The anomaly has just been upgraded to S level." The principal panicked, asking what they could do with Fang Yi inside. Ji Lan could only stare at the fire, questioning his recklessness. Even the strongest soldiers from the Forbidden Zone wouldn't dare enter alone, she muttered in disbelief. Inside the blaze, however, Fang Yi stood perfectly unharmed. His silhouette remained calm against the raging inferno. He knew that just as his Yang attribute had protected him from divine thunder, it could shield him from the skyfire as well. But a problem soon became clear. While his protective aura kept him safe, it also prevented him from touching the source of the flame. Without contact, he couldn't activate his system to create a new technique. Fang Yi realized that his power was both a safeguard and an obstacle. Fang Yi knew he had to reach the source of the flame. He watched as the fire coiled around the basketball hoop like a massive, serpentine dragon, understanding that the heart of the blaze was the key. Without a second thought, he prepared to confront it directly. The fiery dragon lunged at him with a deafening roar. In a daring move, he deactivated his Golden Sun protective aura, leaving himself fully exposed. Instantly, the skyfire surged around him, engulfing him in a torrent of raw, burning energy. Gritting his teeth against the searing pain, he pressed forward, determined to touch the anomaly's core. His gamble paid off. The instant his hand connected with the source, the system sprang into action, confirming a strong fluctuation of the skyfire attribute. Despite the torment, a determined grin spread across his face. He marveled at the sheer power of the skyfire, its will even stronger than the desolation attribute he had recently acquired. Resolute, he swore to absorb this force at any cost. The system ran its final calculations and successfully compiled the new data. With a victorious smirk, Fang Yi knew he had succeeded. A new system window appeared, announcing his reward. He had obtained the Skyfire attribute technique, the Nine Dragons Skyfire sealing art, a formidable power designed to eliminate evil and seal demons. As he honed his control, the once wild flames obeyed his will, coiling around his arm like a tamed dragon. The system confirmed the technique was fully compiled and ready for immediate use. Focusing his intent, he began extracting the Skyfire attribute itself, absorbing its essence directly into his body. His eyes glowed with a burning red light, and fiery markings etched themselves across his face, a visible manifestation of his newfound power. Hands forming a seal, his eyes ablaze with crimson energy, he prepared to unleash the ability, calling out its name, Nine Dragons Skyfire Sealing Art. As the technique erupted, massive glowing red chains shot from his back, lashing into the surrounding flames. Outside the fence, Ji Lan and the principal watched in awe. Ji Lan immediately recognized the energy signature. It was a sealing aura. Memories flashed of a high-level military pioneer once sealing a forbidden land. Though the methods differed, the overwhelming aura was unmistakable. With a command, Fang Yi instructed the chains to retract. They surged inward with immense force, pulling the wild skyfire into a single, tightly bound orb of pure energy. Hovering in the air, Fang Yi held the chained fireball, the sealing process complete. Slowly, the orb floated back toward the basketball hoop, now securely contained. Fang Yi landed with effortless grace and briefed the principal and Ji Lan on the situation. He explained that he had temporarily sealed the skyfire and instructed them not to unseal the playground or allow anyone near it for repairs. This, he emphasized, would at least prevent the fire from spreading further. The principal readily agreed, assuring him that it was no problem, as the university had 7 or 8 other playgrounds to use. Ji Lan, however, watched Fang Yi silently, her gaze sharp and unreadable. The principal, clearly impressed by Fang Yi's demeanor, chuckled and remarked on his humor, offering any further assistance he might need. Ji Lan interrupted politely but firmly, saying she needed to speak with Fang Yi privately. The principal nodded and excused himself, leaving the two alone. Once they were alone, Ji Lan's tone became direct and serious. She remarked that Fang Yi had hidden his true abilities remarkably well. Fang Yi tried to brush it off casually, claiming the skyfire was just powerful and difficult to control, but she saw through his pretense instantly. With a piercing look, she told him to stop pretending, clarifying that her observation wasn't about the fire, but about his own extraordinary talent and level of power. She eased off slightly, acknowledging that it was normal for pioneers to keep secrets, especially someone as formidable as him. Fang Yi listened quietly, his expression calm. Her tone then shifted again, becoming grave and sincere. She admitted she had no right to demand anything from him, but urged him to pay close attention. She painted a bleak picture of the world in chaos, a time of monumental change, where the Sha nation would desperately need elite talents like him. She emphasized his potential, explaining that once spiritual energy fully revived, someone of his strength would be as valuable as a modern nuclear weapon. Consequently, every major power, from the military forbidden zones to the Spiritual Energy Association, would attempt to recruit him. She warned that high-level officials would personally offer him invitations with incredibly generous benefits. Ji Lan disclosed her own motives. Having Fang Yi join her military unit would be a tremendous advantage, giving them a powerful ally. She advised him to consider his options now, so he wouldn't be caught off guard when the moment came. Fang Yi remained silent for a moment before asking an intriguing question. Why did both she and Wang Liang appear hesitant to recruit him directly, even acting as though he were not worth their attention? Ji Lan explained that it was due to the presence of another legendary military region, an insanely powerful group she believed he would be far more inclined to join. A small smirk crossed Fang Yi's face as he confirmed she meant a top-tier unit. She nodded, admitting she hadn't seen them often herself but had heard they were extraordinarily busy lately, so much so that even officers from other regions felt the pressure of their activities. Changing the subject, she suggested they wrap up the discussion and join the principal for a meal at the university cafeteria. As they walked, Fang Yi quietly reflected that even the nation's most powerful forces were grappling with enormous challenges, and his mind raced with the implications of what he had just learned. Ji Lan's words struck a chord with Fang Yi. Terrifying anomalies, with power far beyond the current pioneer's capabilities, had already begun to emerge. He realized that those confronting these threats must include spirit creation realm cultivators like himself, and perhaps even some far stronger. A surge of urgency swept through him. The day of full spiritual energy revival was approaching, yet his preparations were still far from complete. Shifting focus to the immediate task, Fang Yi considered how to best utilize the Skyfire attribute he had just acquired. Its nature was wild, untamed, and all-consuming, leaving nothing in its path. He immediately recognized it as the ideal weapon against anomalies capable of endless reproduction or regeneration. Then, inspiration struck. Its ferocious energy would perfectly complement his Crimson Flame Blade technique. The idea of infusing his sword with this newfound power thrilled him. The potential enhancement to his combat style was immense. Eager to test his abilities, Fang Yi headed to the back mountain, his usual training ground. Upon arrival, he was surprised to find the path blocked by a large warning sign, declaring the mountain dangerous and off-limits. Puzzled, he wondered who could have placed it there. No monsters had appeared in the area, and it seemed unlikely that the military had discovered his secret spot so quickly. Soon, he realized the likely benefactors, the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association. The sign, he understood, was their gift, a private training ground to earn his favor. A smile spread across his face as he decided to accept their gesture. But his thoughts were interrupted. Sharp senses tingling, Fang Yi detected an intruder on the mountain. The aura was familiar, similar to what he had felt at the factory, though weaker. Hidden among the trees, a monstrous monkey-like creature with glowing red eyes observed him. Intelligent, it hesitated, gauging his strength rather than attacking recklessly. With his sword already glowing with energy, Fang Yi decided it was the perfect moment for a display of power. A system window appeared, prompting him to integrate the newly acquired Skyfire attribute into his Tang sword. The system described Skyfire as a potent light attribute, ideal for eradicating evil. Determined, Fang Yi accepted, and immediately, his sword erupted into an unending column of crackling flames. A confident smirk formed on his face. Combining Skyfire's limitless power with his Crimson Flame Blade technique promised devastating results. The mutant creature would be his first test subject. Fang Yi unleashed a massive firestorm upon it. Taken completely by surprise, the creature's eyes widened in terror before being engulfed in the inferno, shrieking in agony. Standing amidst the flames, Fang Yi tested his new ability. The energy output was now at least double, possibly triple, what it had been before, and the flames did not harm him. He touched the blazing sword and was surprised to find it cool to the touch. Just then, he sensed movement. The creature had survived and was attempting to F. With a determined glare, Fang Yi prepared to pursue it, eager to gauge the true strength of his opponent. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, a young woman with curly red hair was live streaming, her phone mounted on a selfie stick. She told her audience that she wasn't lying, she just seemed to have extraordinary luck, with incredible content always finding her. Her confident broadcast was suddenly shattered. A monkey-like monster, the one that had escaped from Fang Yi, burst from the trees and attacked her. The force of the assault sent her phone flying, cracking its screen, though the live stream continued through the damage. Viewers saw the creature pinning her down, but assumed it was a staged fight with poor special effects. The streamer, however, was in genuine peril. She screamed in terror as the monster's paw covered her mouth. Before the attack could land, a colossal blast of fiery energy, shaped like a dragon's head, struck the monster, hurling it back. The streamer looked up in disbelief. She had been saved at the last second. Her audience, still unaware of the real danger, assumed they were witnessing extraordinary fire dragon effects. The sudden drama caused her viewership to spike past 13,000. Still shaking, the streamer glanced over her shoulder, asking who had intervened. She scrambled to retrieve her phone, stood, and pointed the camera toward the source of the attack. In front of her, flames raged, and inside the fire stood a single figure, Fang Yi, completely unharmed. Overwhelmed with awe and fear, she concluded she had been rescued by a true immortal. The footage of Fang Yi saving the streamer, Mala, went viral almost instantly, becoming the top trending topic online with over 13.5 million views. Headlines dubbed him a mysterious man of Skyfire, king of flames, and immortal descended to save the world. In an office, Chu Qingli's friend excitedly called her over to watch the video on her computer. Thrilled, she exclaimed that this proved powerful cultivators existed and that the Skyfire at the university wasn't a hoax. Chu Qing, however, dismissed her friend's excitement, insisting it was all acting and special effects. But as she stared at the screen, her skeptical expression froze into shock and recognition. Her friend, oblivious to Chu Qing's reaction, pointed triumphantly at the screen, commenting on how handsome the man appeared, before noticing Chu Qing's stunned silence. Inside, Chu Qing was in turmoil. She told herself the video must be fake, that the figure only resembled Fang Yi, and reasoned that anyone in such flames would have been reduced to ash. But fear soon crept in as she considered the possibility it really was him. She worried he might use his newfound power for revenge over their breakup, yet stubbornly resolved that, no matter what, she would never bow to him. Elsewhere, the red-haired leader of Lin Yi's pioneer squad showed the same video to Yi on her phone. She asked if the man looked familiar, suggesting he was the same person who had saved them from the monstrous vine. Yi agreed, then added a startling revelation. She had recently learned that a master who had broken through to the spirit creation realm lived in her neighborhood. In another location, Zhang Xia and a male pioneer from the lava cave incident also watched the video. The man immediately recognized Fang Yi's fighting stance and remarked on how much stronger he had become, while his companion noted that the way he wielded his blade was identical. Realizing how fortunate they were to have such a powerful figure on their side, they couldn't help but feel awed. News of Fang Yi's public display of strength soon reached the upper echelons of the nation's two main organizations, inside a SK, modern skyscraper, likely the association's headquarters. The city's crisis was worsening, and the current pioneers were struggling to keep up in a high-level meeting room. Chu Qingying addressed a group of officials. She informed them that the military had already been in communication with Fang Yi and expressed her firm belief that he would agree to assist them. Meanwhile, in a military command center, Ji Lan, Major Han, and other officers analyzed the intelligence. They were astounded by his rapid progression, calling him a monster for reaching the spirit creation realm so quickly. They speculated on how many high-tier attributes he might possess, with one officer suggesting 3, or even more. The consensus was clear: intimidating him was pointless, their only choice was to recruit him. Major Han asked if the High Command had decided to approach him personally. Ji Lan confirmed that they had, though he noted that the top brass remained hesitant, as all previous top-tier pioneers had come from within the military. Taking charge, Major Han outlined a new strategy: provide Fang Yi with any weapons or equipment he might need, supply information on suitable training locations as a goodwill gesture, and, crucially, control the spread of the viral livestream and related rumors. The entire spiritual energy circle in the Sea Nation was now focused on Fang Yi. Both Chu Qingying and Ji Lan contemplated his future. Chu Qing appeared concerned about the immense pressure he now faced, while Ji Lan's expression carried a subtle confidence. As leaders of their respective organizations, they both eagerly awaited the next move of this extraordinary young man. Meanwhile, in a quiet hospital room, a heart monitor beeped steadily. A mysterious woman with long purple hair sat by the bedside of an unseen patient she called her teacher. Softly, she spoke, noting that the Sha Nation had seemingly found a new hope. With someone as powerful as Fang Yi appearing, she added, the chances of her teacher finally waking up had grown slightly higher. One day later, back at his apartment, Fang Yi had breakfast while reflecting on the previous day. He thought about how news of his battle in the back mountain had gone viral, thanks to a daring live streamer who had sneaked into the restricted area. As he ate, he noticed that the video had since been completely removed and the streamer's account banned, likely by the military or the Spiritual Energy Association. His thoughts were interrupted when he realized something was amiss. His cousin, Lin Yi, hadn't returned home the previous night and hadn't sent any messages. This was unusual, even for someone on a mission. A sense of unease gripped him as he tried to call her, only to reach an out-of-service message. Now genuinely worried, he resolved to find her. Meanwhile, deep in a dark, misty forest, Lin Yi and the red-haired leader of her pioneer squad were lost and trapped. The leader asked Yi if she had any idea how long they had been stuck. Yi estimated around 10 hours, though she had lost track. Exhausted and bruised, the red-haired leader apologized profusely for dragging Yi into the situation, admitting she had thought they were only investigating a strange phenomenon. She clutched her side in pain as she spoke. Yi insisted that she stop apologizing, telling her leader that her own lack of strength had caused their predicament. She urged her to stay alert and conserve what little energy remained. Her thoughts drifted to the overwhelmingly powerful master she had witnessed, wishing she possessed even a fraction of his power to save them. Their desperate conversation was abruptly cut short as a massive, shadowy monster emerged from the fog behind them, its glowing red eyes and jagged, menacing form filling the space with dread.